Mic check, mic check. Yo, what's going on, y'all? Alright, give me about like 1 minute and I'll get the stream started. Other than that, how's everybody's Sunday while you guys are coming in? Alright, cool. I see a lot of you guys coming in now. Alright. I'm gonna get this started pretty quick and easy. Alright. What up, y'all? It's Ron Goodall over here at FightHype. Few hours removed from what could possibly be Jaron Ennis's greatest win. I believe it's his greatest win on his resume, and silencing a lot of naysayers going into this fight. I know that there was a lot of questions that have been lingering around. Is Jaron Ennis still that guy that we think he is? This Roy Jones-esque future of the welterweight division, possibly pound for pound. Well, we had some questions. Maybe some of you guys didn't. But we had a lot of answers that went down yesterday on Saturday night at Atlantic City, where Jaron Ennis dismantled and controlled most of the pace of the fight with Eimantas Stanionis in a unification fight for the lineage of the welterweight for the IBF and the WBA title. And personally, I was definitely impressed with how he was able to silence a lot of the critics, myself included. You know, I put myself in there with a lot of skepticism because I'm a person who likes consistency, right? And, you know, for the most part, we've kind of looked at Jaron Ennis as this guy who is supposed to be the boogeyman underneath Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence, you know, the high risk, low reward kind of person. So in my honest, you know, I guess I'll give some criticism, but my honest praise, right, is that, you know, I thought that if Jaron didn't clip Stanionis at, I don't know, maybe like a couple rounds, right, kind of like catch off code, it was going to be a pretty dragged out long fight, the longer the fight went. Only because, you know, you got an undefeated guy from Eastern Europe who has a great amateur background, tough, relentless style. Not saying that the style isn't suited for Jaron, but it definitely is a better opponent than Villa. Personally, I think a better opponent than Karen Chukajan. And a guy who, regardless of what people say based off inactivity or whatever the excuses or things out there, you know, would answer or would put Jaron Ennis to a lot of, you know, tough situations, see how he handles it. And I think he controlled the pace really well. He was very busy. He was very active. What up, boss? Jaron Ennis looked spectacular. Black Ray Donovan says 154 boots will look average, in my opinion. We'll get into all of that in a sec. But what up, Black? Mr. Hill, what's up? What does Bozy mean by don't talk about Brian Norman and Brian Norman Sr. talk too much? Are they going to fight Brian Norman Jr. or keep bringing up old spoiled trash talk? yeah, I'm gonna get to all that in just a quick second. I guess my thing I just wanted just to get out is that, Jaron Ennis has had some questionable performances, and people have kind of made kind of excuses where it's like, all right, he wasn't really motivated for Karen Chukajan. He's fought him before. Or, the David Avanesian fight where, he was inactive and things of that nature. I think sometimes you just have to call a spade and just say, like, those were just not great performances. So for him to go out there and fight on paper his best opposition, a guy who, as you can see last night, had great great positioning when he was able to, good hooks when he was able to catch Jaron Ennis in between exchanges, made Jaron Ennis really have to dig in his bag and actually present a consistent offense where, Stanionis couldn't really get in control, build a pace, and kind of started winging a little bit more than he should carelessly. And it created great counter-punching opportunities for Jaron Ennis. And at a certain point where you felt that the work rate would have to come from Stanionis and Jaron would have to be on his back foot in the box, Jaron Ennis decided to pick up his pace and become the bully, use his size and reach in a different type of way. Press the action and never gave Stanionis an opportunity to rest. I still feel like there's some leaky defense that Jaron has at the age that he's at, but I think just in general, I think that's just part of his just his style. It's very exciting when you look at it. When you're not trying to be a critic. As a fight fan, he definitely makes fights are exciting when they're in that type of phone booth. But, he did get caught with a good amount of left hooks that can be very dangerous when he moves up in weight. But other than that, I thought Jaron Ennis looked spectacular. And I thought that he deserves all the credit that he does because, in my personal opinion, I thought the fight was actually going to go to distance. I did pick Jaron to win. And I think that if you were continuously still on the Jaron Ennis, like you were a believer of Jaron Ennis, and I'm not saying that those previous fights from Jaron Ennis didn't make me not believe that Jaron Ennis would win, but it was the question that would he look spectacular? Would he be able to create a performance similar like Villa, where he can take all the attention and notoriety that he's gotten from no-name guys praising him like Floyd and other fighters, saying that he's a beast, Shakur, and everyone around him saying that he's that guy, and deliver on a stage on with all the chips and marbles where it matters the most, and actually have that type of performance in front of a crowd against a worthy opponent. And I thought he deserves the credit. I think he deserves all the credit. And if you were definitely still like, no, watch, Jaron will deliver. He did. You know what I mean? I was on the I think the common opinion was that Jaron was going to go the distance with Stanionis. So you have to give him credit that he was able to stop this guy in the mid rounds too. You know what I mean? It was like, the fifth round, he dropped him and his corner stopped it. So it hasn't even made it to the 6 rounds. And he was able to not just hurt him, but essentially get his corner to throw in the towel, which many people are calling quit. But, I think it was the right call because at the point that it was going, Jaron was throwing like 100 punches per Stanionis, throwing maybe a couple just get off me punches. It wasn't looking good. So, but let me get to the chat real quick. Jaron Ennis looked great. 154 boots will look average in my opinion. I mean, it's something that we all have to see, you know what I mean? Like, I think he definitely needs better opposition to show what he's capable of doing because, he spoke himself that when he has a live body, he's able to perform. So, but when he goes at 154, he's going to be fighting bigger guys, sizable guys that's going to probably be more of his attributes. And so it's going to be interesting. And, he won't be able to kind of just buzzsaw through guys by just using his size. He will have to use his skill. Not saying that he didn't use his skill Saturday. He definitely used his skill. But, when you move up in weight, it becomes more about your skill than just your size, What does Bozy mean by the don't talk about Brian Norman? I think what they were talking about is that they were mentioning that they claim that what you call it, when Brian Norman fought Derek Cuevas, that he was only getting kind of like a small purse to fight on the undercard. So wouldn't you want to fight for a unification for millions of dollars, right? And the hang up, I'm sure you guys heard, was the difference about a couple $100,000. Not saying just a couple, but just clarifying, like, they wanted a little bit more. They couldn't get it. And so they kind of questioned, like, if you're willing to take that fight opposed to this fight, you know, how come, you know, if you're willing to do a couple $100,000 there, why don't you just take these millions and call it a day? So I think they're just frustrated with the idea that that fight didn't happen, and, you know, they're feeling like at this point, you know, the position where they're at, and, you know, they're gonna want some more money. It's just all politics really when it comes out to it. I think it's a fight that fight fans would want to see. I mean, I think last night we can clearly see that Stanionis was definitely a live dog, you know, because there was a lot of great moments that Stanionis done. That it did feel like number 1 versus 2 in the welterweight division. I know it's 4 vacant champions after Crawford moved up, but that's just every division when an undisputed champion goes up. And these are the top guys that rose to the top. And I think, you know, this is a good case of good guys fighting each other. So Brian Norman does have a case against Jaron Ennis. I do feel like Jaron Ennis is the number 1 guy. And because Stanionis is seasoned veteran, you know, he had probably one of the better resumes amongst the guys. You know, Jaron is probably more likely certified as the number 1 welterweight champion. So, I mean, I would love to see Brian Norman and Jaron. They've sparred each other. Ironically, I just missed them sparring years ago when they first originally was sparring each other when I went down to Philly to visit Boots and Bozy. And it's funny because I did read some text messages, and that's all I can say about their sparring. And I don't know if I'm privy to even speak on it at this moment, but I did read some text messages. That's all I can say. And I do have a perspective of how that fight goes based off just those text messages alone was very interesting. But they're different fighters now. Clearly, Brian probably was like 19, 20. And then, you know, obviously he's had a lot of inconsistent performances, and now you can see back-to-back he's starting to kind of come to his own too. So these guys are just starting to kind of feel their championship status a lot more, and you've seen how much Brian's grown from the, you know, the early fights in his top-ranked career. So what up, Dwayne? Did you see the Pro Box TV, the fights last night in Maryland? You know what's crazy? I was actually at the Pro Box fight, Dwayne. It was between going to the Boots fight and the Pro Box fight, and I wanted to, because everyone's gonna go to the Boots fight, right? And you know, I've covered Boots a lot before, so Pro Box had an event where Lamont Roach Sr. was the head promoter with Pro Box, and so I wanted to go out. I wanted to see a couple guys out in Maryland, up and coming guys. Part of the job is not just being at the glamorous fights, but also be at fights to see some of the up and coming guys. So I did interview Paulie and Chris Algieri and a couple guys, Marquez, after they did their commentary on that fight about the Boots. So what up, John? Boots made him quit in the chair. Yeah, I mean, look, it's questionable if it was him or his corner, but I'm pretty sure that if Stanionis wanted to continue, he would have definitely put a more effort in telling his corner to say, hey, please give me one more round. But I think we got the message, you know, across the board. I don't think it would have been a good call to send him out there because Jaron was tearing through him. Anything outside of what we saw was just going to be just a highlight reel knockout. So just save this guy. You know, he was already like a 4-1 underdog. Granted, you know, he definitely put a great effort, and you know, his moments he was very competitive, and he caught Boots extremely flush at times, like extremely flush. But you know, Jaron was just very comfortable, you know, very comfortable, poised. He was, quote, in his bag, as he would say. And I think part of his performance comes from that criticism, you know, people claiming that he was ducking Vergil, claiming that he's not the guy that people, you know, said he was. And there was a lot of media guys, myself, that thought that the obvious pick was, that this fight could go the distance. Obviously there was a lot that said Jaron Ennis was going to stop him, but I think it was more of the fact that stylistically, if Stanionis was just going to walk in straight forward without any type of game plan, or just kind of just try to bully Jaron, yeah, of course he's going to get knocked out. But it does leave questions about, would Jaron Ennis fight intelligently and be motivated and all those type of things that he made before. And he was everything that he said he was. And my only criticism, it was a spectacular breakout performance. I even would say, like, borderline star-making performance. The only reason why I can't say it's star-making, a star performance, because the opponent he faced wasn't a star. But granted, if that was anyone that had, like, a known name or something like that, and he performed like that against a guy that had, like, casual fans and things like that, then yeah, I would highly say that was a star performance for the name notoriety. But the performance itself, skill-wise, boxing fans, I think everyone can probably just turn down the criticism heavily down and just call it a day and say, yo, this dude is really good. And I just want to see him now fight guys like maybe like a Vergil, Ortiz, or maybe some of the other champions, and become Undisputed or stuff like that, just so that it keeps the consistency of this guy's on the trajectory of being, one of these pound-for-pound greats. But my only criticism is just the squaring up and getting caught with hooks. I think he's already constantly been criticized for just having little holes in his defense. I think when he kind of postures a little bit, he kind of, what they say, take pictures a little too much. Or when his opponent turns, he kind of like doesn't necessarily move in a fluid fashion, but kind of like steps to the side. But other than that, I mean, everyone's going to have flaws. You know what I mean? Terrence Crawford gets hit. Inouye's been dropped. Usyk's had questionable performances, or been potentially dropped. So, I mean, it's like, it's nitpicking at a point where everybody and everyone has holes and has problems. But I think Jaron Ennis last night has raised the stock tremendously, shut a lot of doubters up, and even impressed people who even picked him to win, but in a way where he just kind of made it look beyond easy. And then for the ones who believed that it was going to be easy, well, there you go. What have you done for me lately is definitely going to be part of this, and Jaron Ennis is definitely sitting on a very good position. So Sebastian Fundora KO's Boots. It's very interesting now, because I feel like now the story is, all right, he's the best welterweight in the world, right? And I know that Brian Norman and Mario Barrios is still out there, but I think people feel that Mario Barrios has probably been in too many of these kind of drag out fights where you just kind of wonder, could he even hang with a Jaron Ennis, like Stanionis did? And, Brian Norman, very athletic himself, possibly a guy who punches harder than Stanionis, but doesn't have the professional experience that Stanionis did going into the fight Saturday. So you kind of like wonder, like, all right, well, if Brian Norman lands those flush hits, right, he probably would have, pretty good effect on Jaron. But seeing that these two guys have sparred each other multiple times, and Jaron seemed extremely confident, and just knowing that Brian Norman is this 24-year-old kid who's just trying to build his own kind of legacy and kind of grow into his own kind of position, you kind of get a sense that Jaron Ennis is more seasoned, and Ryan is definitely a guy who is a little bit behind just off of his professional experience. So it kind of makes me feel like, as much as I love the idea of Boots becoming Undisputed, you kind of want him to fight the next type of level guy in his career. And I feel like a guy like Vergil Ortiz, Bakram, the guy that beat Tim Tszyu, the 154 division, is definitely more desirable, in my personal opinion, especially knowing that he was able to do what he did with Stanionis Saturday. It's something that you just have to sit there and just kind of like, you got to challenge this guy, because he made that fight look way too easy, just way too easy. And that's just what happens, you know. You do something great, we want more. And I'm guilty of that. I'm a gluttony for greatness, and I think that Jaron, if he can take a performance like that and translate it into 154, I mean, I think we're gonna start seeing some really serious performances from a guy that could potentially be a top 5 pound for pound guy in the future if he's performing like that against guys at 154. You know, that division's heavily stacked with tough, durable guys, and I think that's what we want. I think last night was the first real moment in Jaron Ennis' career where you can honestly say that's a credible, fair, and honest win. Like, you can't take nothing away from that. You know what I mean? Whatever, regardless feelings you had prior to it, you have to give Jaron Ennis credit for defeating an undefeated guy, you know, tough, durable, strong chin, and either his corner stopped it or he quit. Regardless, I mean, you know, he came down there missing possibly the birth of his child, so you know he wasn't there just to get a particular check. He came there to really actually win. He believed in himself, and I think he got, you know, arguably the best version of Stanionis. I know people have been kind of like, oh, he's only fought one time in 3 years. I mean, look, I'm not really gonna get, you know, into it. I thought his last fight, you know, he looked perfectly fine. He didn't look rusty, and I think even the early rounds against Jaron, it was a dogfight, you know. But Jaron separated himself. I don't think if Stanionis had a couple fights, or even the fight probably even happened, you know, I don't know, before the Chukajan rematch, right? I think it's a style matchup where Jaron would have been heavily favored, and it probably was even worse that Jaron fought him now because he has a chip on his shoulder. So I think he would have won then, but regardless now, I mean, he's fighting the most poised and most comfortable version of this guy, you know. So Boots' skills is different and his chin is underrated. Yeah, you know, you raise a really good point that his chin's underrated. You know, Boots has never been a guy that seemed like he's been wobbled too often. I know Karen caught him with a pretty good shot and kind of had him, I think it was a left hook that kind of sent him flying a little bit. But Boots has shown durability, you know, and he's took very, very flush shots from Stanionis, very clean hooks, and never looked confused, never looked off key, off focus, took a step back. I mean, he took those shots clean and flush. So you got to start giving him credit, at least at 147, that he has a durable chin that can live up to the hype that he has been once granted. So I think you make a great point about his chin. Stanionis' biggest problem is he didn't slip the jab and stay up the jab, though. The fight also, Boots had the speed advantage, so Stanionis need time Boots throughout the fight. Yeah, I mean, you can see that Boots is the more athletic fighter, you know, and you know, he's freaky fast to the point where he was showboating in the fight. His reaction time, his agility, everything about Boots just screams high level, just high level athleticism. The dude can make mistakes but still get out of it because of the fact that he's able to react so flawlessly at those times, which is probably the reason why he gets hit sometimes, because when he miscalculates, you know, his athleticism may have kind of been the crutch of some of those poor defensive moves. But outside of that, yeah, man, it's just tough. You know, Jaron was a 4-1 favorite for a reason. You know, I wanted to give Stanionis a lot more credit than what the bookies did, just only because the fact that I was a lot more critical on Jaron himself. And it was a fight that Jaron would have to really, you know, show up and not come lackadaisically like he's done in his last fight. So he showed up, he was motivated, and so, but yeah, that speed was apparent. So, and he did time Boots at moments, but you know, it's just, you know, UFC was something else last night. Boxing, man, yo, base chat, I didn't even get to see it. I heard the results of Volkanovski was in a good fight. Michael Chandler was getting destroyed by Paddy Pimblett. What else was on the card? Yeah, I got to go peep it. You know what I mean? You know, it's hard to cover and watch everything, so I have to go back. Boots looked outstanding. Haters just finding something to hate about. Yeah, he looked flawless. You know what I mean? And I think going into the fight, I think every moment of criticizing him prior was valid. So now after the performance, it leaves nothing to really criticize. Now we just kind of have to figure out what direction he goes. And when they asked him at the post conference, is Undisputed next? He didn't really give a definitive answer, which kind of leaves now room to make me wonder: is 154 or taking other fights that are with bigger names now on the table? He chose his words carefully, so he wouldn't get into that same type of position before the fight. And it's good. Just get this win. You unified. You got lineal. They gave you the Ring magazine. Arguably did fight the best welterweight you could in the division. So enjoy that moment, and we'll see what goes from there. But yeah, there's really nothing to hate about from Saturday. I think he looked outstanding. How was David's fight? Not good. When Boots stopped him quicker than anyone. Because this is what happens, Juanma. When you are a guy that has high marketing, high praise, and you're expected to win, like 4-1, things of that nature. I mean, it's unfair, but everyone goes through it. Like Inoue goes through it, Usyk goes through it, Crawford goes through it, Devin goes through it, Shakur goes through it, Tank goes through it. Every single person, Bam Rodriguez, Bivol, Arthur, Canelo, every single person who is like arguably one of the faces of boxing, one of the guys that are the lead, selling draws in the sport, one of the most paid top guys or the top guys in the division, they're always going to get that criticism when they don't do something that seems like this guy is nowhere near your league. And I think with the David Avanesian fight on short notice, I think there was an expectation because, Jaron Ennis is this massive welterweight who has quick hands, very powerful. And I think the expectation was that he was going to make it look easier, if not like clearly easier than what Terrence did, right? Because that's kind of what people were trying to do. They were trying to do a barometer about the David Avanesian fight. And at the same time, as a reminder, David Avanesian fought Lamont Roach, and if I'm not mistaken, let me double check really quick before I just start spewing things out. Let's see. Right? Or was it? Hold on. Terrence Crawford. Boom. David Avanesian. Oh, my bad. Not David Avanesian. Lamont Peterson. I mean, not Lamont Roach. Lamont Peterson. Yeah, that's what it is. David Avanesian lost to Lamont Peterson. Right? And so I think at the end of the day, I think, there's an expectation for, and then Mean Machine beat him. I think it's just an expectation that, these guys prior to him, and prior to Terrence and prior to Jaron, those two were supposed to make David Avanesian look like kind of like a bum, right? And you can't really call fighters a bum, but that's the type of expectation that comes through with these type of guys. So when you kind of have kind of a subpar performance, and I think we could be fair, like, yeah, he won, but it didn't seem like pound for pound like performance. So same with Karen. And Jaron can tell you this too, right? Like, he knows the criticism out there is based on the fact that he didn't really look like the guy that he was supposed to. And so it just comes with the territory. So if you're just a low-ranked guy and you're fighting guys, you're not going to get that type of criticism. But when you're a guy that everyone's praising, everyone's talking about, you want to be the next Sugar Ray Leonard, you want to be the next Floyd Mayweather, you want to be the next Terrence Crawford, you want to be the... Understand that when you kind of have a fight where it might feel unjust that you're getting this type of criticism because you stopped a guy in 5 rounds and you should be getting praised, is a different type of standard, And that's just what comes with boxing, So, only fight you can say Boots didn't look like this. Karen, everybody else has looked like Stanionis. Yeah, but like I kind of said, like the David Avenesian fight, I think he got hit more in that fight than Stanionis, and I think arguably maybe like, I mean, he got hit a lot. He got hit a lot in that fight. He got hit a lot in that David Avenesian fight. So that's why, like, going into this fight, there was so much skepticism. You know what I mean? You know, amongst a lot of people, and that's why people were very surprised. Like, I interviewed Juanwell Marquez. He was shocked that Boots stopped Stanionis. Not saying that he didn't probably pick Jaron, but based on the fact that Stanionis is a tough guy and Jaron hasn't been looking like Superman that people thought that he was, it leaves this fight to be, you know, in question that if it was going to go the distance or not. Same with Paulie Malignaggi. Paulie did not, you know, a guy who's been commentating and covering fights for a very long time was shocked himself. Chris Algieri predicted that Jaron Ennis was going to stop him, but other than that, you can see that, you know, Jaron was heavily the favorite. It was just the fact that how he was going to do it. Boots is a weight bully, TCP says. Yeah, I mean, we can't really like gloss the idea that he's big for the welterweight division, you know, but at the same time, you know, he does make the weight without any controversy. And to be fair, because he's had the IBF belt, you know, he's made a 10-pound rehydration for, you know, the last couple fights of his career. So I think to truly call him a weight bully is tough because, you know, at the end of the day, he is arguably probably one of, if not the biggest welterweight in the division at the top level. He's a guy who's also able to maintain that weight, you know, the following day. So I'm going to give him some leniency because he was able to stick it out and go the IBF route for, you know, a little bit and actually was able to maintain it. But, you know, at some point he's going to be at 154. And I think that's really what's going to really separate a lot of people's opinions about who Jaron Ennis is, because I don't think no one in the chat disagrees that Jaron Ennis is not the best welterweight in the world. You know, he probably was the best welterweight prior to it, but, you know, like myself, it's hard to just give that to someone until they prove it. Jaron Ennis proved that last night, that he is the best welterweight in the division by far. You know, and Brian Norman and Mario Barrios are good appetizers for the division, and fights that I would like to see Brian more just because of the entertainment factor and the build-up between the trash talking and the history of the sparring. But I think, you know, 154 will be the division that would be able to answer your question: is he a weight bully or not? Or is he really that good? Because if he goes through 154 as a buzzsaw, I think that moment, I think, would just kind of clarify, like, no, he's just that good. You know what I mean? He's just really that good. Is Turkey going to get his way with playing Boots and Teo fighting Saudi? You know, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a fan of Teo Boots. Like, simply because of the fact that just kind of the conversation we just had. You know, Jaron is arguably a big welterweight. Like, it's very apparent. And Teo, who's coming from 135, probably a big 135. So he's filling out at 140, fine. But, you know, he goes to 147. You know, Teo is definitely going to be giving up a lot of physical advantage, which we haven't really seen fights where Teo, outside of the Josh Taylor, I guess I can't really say that. But, you know, he's going to be fighting a guy, again, who's physically taller, longer reach. But he's going to have a lot more pizzazz, or whatever they say. A lot more, it's just like Jaron is just a whole nother different type of fighter than Josh Taylor. You know what I mean? Like, he's got better footwork. He got, a solid jab. You know, he turns, he could box, you know, and he'll fight Teo. And plus, he has what Teo has. He has freaky athleticism. A guy where, you know, if you're kind of making the wrong moves, you can bail yourself out by just being just God-gifted athletic. And, you know, Teo's God-gifted athletic. So is Jaron Ennis. So he's fighting a guy who's all the attributes that Teo has, if not more, you know. And so it would be definitely the hardest puncher that Teo probably would face, the fastest guy that Teo would face. a guy that's just as athletic, potentially even more athletic. I mean, I don't like that fight personally, you know. And you know, if Tio was able to go up and by all means beat Jaron Ennis, I think Teofimo Lopez then at that point has to be like top 3 pound for pound. Like I gotta figure out who I'm bumping up from Bud, Usyk, and Inoue. I mean, or Bivol. Like Teo goes off and knock off Jaron Ennis. I mean, that top 3 is getting crowded. You know what I mean? So I just don't like it because I gotta favor Jaron because it just gets harder when you move up in weight. It's just, especially when it's the top guy versus the top guy. So there's no better opposition for Boots. Yo, what's up, yo, daddy? Boots not getting tested at 160. I mean, you gotta look at the landscape. Sometimes it's just depending on who's the opponent, right? I mean, at 160, you know, I think there's certain fights that he could potentially maybe win. You know what I mean? Style-wise. But then again, I mean, Janabek is a big-ass dude who is also... Janabek is freaky athletic, and he's a big guy, too. You know what I mean? So, you might be right about the 160. You know, a Jaron Ennis Janabek fight sounds absolutely, like, insane to even match make. But, you know, that's a tough fight. So, but 154, man, like, if he doesn't unify in a division, then 154, let's get it cracking, right? Let's get those guys up. You know? People always hating on someone. It's like, damn, give homeboy his props, man. He won. He beat the dude. He looked good, too. He got hit a couple times, but oh, well, that's boxing. Yeah, Chris, I think you hit it right on the nail. That's just kind of how I felt. You know, he got hit. It comes with the territory, you know. He can tighten that defense. You know, that's something that everybody has always said, so it's nothing new. And I think at the age that he's at, you know, I think that's just going to be Jaron. You know what I mean? But outside of just getting hit, when you know that happens when you fight top guys, everybody gets hit. You know, Inoue, Usyk, Bud, you know, they've gotten hit by even lesser opposition. So comes with the territory. But yeah, Jaron looked spectacular last night. I like to see him versus Barrios, somebody at least his height. Yeah, but I think the problem with the Barrios fight is that I think Barrios been in a lot of wars. You know, I'm not throwing any shade to Mario Barrios. I think the best should fight the best and champions should fight champions at the end of the day. But, you know, he got Abel Ramos problems, you know? Like, arguably might have to rematch him to kind of get in the good graces of the public. There's rumors of him potentially getting a money fight with Manny Pacquiao. So, at this point, I just don't really favor Mario Barrios and Jaron Ennis. And it just doesn't really sound... The only thing that sounds interesting about it is that you got champion versus champion, right? And the goal is to be undisputed. So get all the hard work together, strap it up, put the green belt on Jaron. But I gave Stanionis a lot more of a chance than Barrios. And if that's what he did with Stanionis, then I don't really see it being any different, if not worse, for Barrios. And, you know, and Brian Norman, like I said earlier, is a guy who may potentially be the biggest puncher in the division outside of Jaron. But, you know, he has some sort of fundamental flaws as well, and he's still developing. So, to me, I would feel like it's almost like Jaron is fighting a guy who is developing. And I think Stanionis was a more even, equal match of a guy. Even though he has less fights than Jaron, you know, he had more fights at the higher level, and he's been more consistent with performances of, like, you know, he won with no question. He won with no question. He won with no question. You know, Brian Norman just got out of the doghouse of just being like, man, this dude kind of looked not like who they said he was, right? You know, and he was a favorable underdog against Santillan. So, and he, you know, he dominated him. So, I just want a little bit more season with Norman, just because I really don't want to hear any excuses. If by all means, if Jaron beats him, you know, saying he's too green or things like that, it's definitely going to be thrown out a lot. Sebastian Fundora would violate Boots at 154. You know, Victor, I like the fight, and it's definitely a fight where, you know, he's not going to get a lot of sparring partners, if any sparring partner, to prepare himself for Fundora. But I like Jaron's chances in that fight. You know, I think Fundora gets hit a little bit more than I like, but Jaron can't fight him in the inside game too long because Fedor definitely shines in the kitchen. And I think it definitely gets dangerous when uppercuts start getting thrown because Jaron likes throwing uppercuts, but he can't really throw uppercuts to, as easy against a guy that tall unless he leans forward. And Fedor, being at his fights, the leverage he gets, right? It's almost like, and please just take the analogy just for what it is and not be like, oh, don't you dare bring up guys like, I'll actually bring up 2 guys, maybe 3 guys. Guys like Mark Breland, long, lanky arms. Tommy Hearns, long, lanky arms. Deontay Wilder, long, lanky arms. They're able to kind of get a leverage. It's kind of almost like a whip, right? Like if you've seen like the Game of Death with Bruce Lee, where you had like the green bamboo stick. It's like a whipping. Whoops. Give me 1 second.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, my son just walked in the room. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay, sorry. My son just woke up from a nap, and I thought I had my office door locked. So he obviously wanted to say hi. He was like 18 months, so he was gonna start crying if I didn't go pick him up. So appreciate that. But what I was saying is like it's Fedor is able to like get some freaky leverage where he's able to kind of like get some really snappy. Yeah, Rose Sun crashed the party. He's able to get like this really whipping, snappy shot where when he does get leverage, like for the Lubin fight, he's able to just really get a dangerous uppercut. Just like how Wilder's able to throw a good right hand from afar, or Tommy Hearns when he whipped under. I'm not saying it's the same, but I do have Boots beating Fedor, but he would have to fight him in a way where it doesn't put him in like stupid positions, right? Because Fedor does have good tricks up his sleeve. You know what I mean? I think Fedor is a guy where defensively he's flawed, but if you fight him in the wrong way, he would decimate you. So, but I think just Jaron is just a guy who will be able to comfortably navigate over time against Fedor, and I think he'll be able to get out. But that's a good fight, Victor, and I wouldn't be surprised, that the pressure of Fedor could pose a threat. You know what I mean? I think 154 is the division where we actually find out what Jaron is capable of, and there's a lot more closer matchups. Less 4-1 bookie odds, in my personal opinion. I think Jaron Ennis would probably be the favorite in almost all those matchups at 154. Almost. I think maybe there'd be, Vergil might be something that people debate on heavily, but I think Jaron would come out pretty comfortable in a lot of those matches. But we got to see it, right? Just talking about it and just fantasizing about a matchup, leaves, a lot of debate. Victor feels like Sebastian would violate Jaron. So once again, we got to see those fights, right? So I'm with Victor on the idea that I like the fight, and I definitely would want that. So Jason says Boots versus Vergil after he beats Norman and Mario Barrios. Yeah, if the goal is to be undisputed and unified, then yeah, we have to see, if that actually can happen. But if politics definitely gets in the way and those things just don't seem like it's gonna happen, then don't waste this guy's prime. You know what I mean? I think undisputed is important to a degree, but I think, if it's not the best fight in the best, and I think Jaron kind of separated himself from his class last night by fighting Stanionis, that there really doesn't give too much. It's just my personal opinion, right? I know a lot of people have been bringing up Norman a lot, but it doesn't really leave much for desire for me to want to see him stay 2-3 years and really fight tooth and nail just to pick up a couple belts. You know what I mean? He's already the lineal champion in the division. He'll go into the books as, the best welterweight of this particular moment of time, post Crawford era. So it's time to kind of go up and maybe go into more challenging, more no-name fights And I think when there's not actual good fights in your division where fight fans are glamoring, like people keep bringing up Vergil, right? I want to see him fight Vergil. I think Vergil and Jaron Ennis is, like, honestly, on paper considered a 50-50 fight, because you got now Jaron, who destroyed Stanionis, and then you got Vergil, who just came off his biggest win against Madrimov, right? A guy who gave Crawford a lot of fits at 154. And it's really interesting because Jaron Ennis' toughest fight was with a guy who moves, Karen Chukachan. And Vergil's toughest fight was a guy that came forward to him, which is Vergil Ortiz. Sergey Boyachek. So at that point, it definitely feels like there is a potential style clash where these guys have kind of like worked better against the style that's been designed for them, and Vergil being a pressure fighter against a guy that likes to move, he's always kind of done well. And Boots fighting a guy that comes forward, he's always done well. So I think, honestly, it's a really good matchup. And I think that if Boots possibly could fight in pockets aggressive and not just box him, I think he can probably win that. But it's a fight where it has to happen. Those two guys are literally like 50-50, Uh-oh. I see someone in there. Glaves. Yo. You don't have to stay in here. That's all I'm saying. But if you want to spend your Sunday just typing away, be my guest, man. I don't see no Ennis fanboys in the chat bringing up Sebastian Findor. I think it's I think just people just have the idea of just Vergil and Jaron. I don't think people aren't dismissing the idea of Boots versus Findor. I think just people originally had the idea that Vergil and Jaron were potentially going to fight each other in that Turkey card, and now it's like that's what's fixated in people's minds. I think for Findor, I think people probably want to see Findor versus. Well, originally it was supposed to be him and Spence, right? So, it doesn't really leave a lot of room and desire at the time for thinking Boots and Findor. We were thinking Findor versus Spence. So now this gives a moment of us to kind of sit there and actually think about it. I don't think people were actually thinking Jaron versus Findor because it just didn't seem realistic at that time. So Boots versus Findor might start to happen. And if he does move up in weight, people will bring up Findor. And I think Findor will probably also have a potential mandatory against Xander Zayas. So I think just Findor is just tied up right now. And I think that's what goes down with that. So Vergil Ortiz Jr. beats Boots, I think. Yeah, a lot of people think that police night. And it's a fight that definitely needs to happen. Who beat Findor? Brian Mendoza beat Findor. And I think he had a questionable a draw in the past, a long time ago. So, he's not perfect. We've seen him be defeated. We've seen him have flaws, go tooth and nail with fights. And even the last fight, he got caught with some overhand right hands, I believe so. If Findor ribs are made of metal, then I give him a chance against Boots. I mean, we haven't really seen anyone go to Findor's body and kind of like, put him to test that way. We've seen Lubin use good boxing a little bit, but Findor's pressure broke him down, and I think Lubin didn't necessarily fight the best game plan. So no one's really kind of went into Findor's body. I think Tim Tszyu would have potentially been a good opponent to see that, but he had blood in his eyes, so unfortunately we already saw that fight. So we saw all the blood. So we already know what happened there. So Tim Tszyu. It has to happen. Boots versus Norman Jr. make it. That's if they can agree to the money. You know, it comes down to the money. Oh shit, my bad, Matt. $5 super chat. I think this came in when my son ran in, so my bad. That took priority. I think Boots can outbox Vergil 55-45 though. Who is the? Don't worry, Sniper. It was my boy Sean. He used to be here. That's what he was talking about. Yeah. Which I have nothing negative to say about my guy. It's just, I don't know. Every once in a while someone comes in and I want a guy that I used to watch or blah blah. That's all that is. But Matt, I think Boots can outbox Vergil. I think personally, prior to the Stanionis fight, I was edging Vergil slightly, and I've always picked Jaron to beat Vergil in like a 55-45 kind of fight. But then, you know, Vergil has progressed with good names, good opposition, fighting guys, especially the Majimov. You got to start giving him a lot of credit at a point. Like, this kid is just not, even the Boyacek fight, which was very controversial. A lot of people saw it both ways, but you still got to give Vergil credit because he fought those guys. He was in the ring and he showed success. Because Jaron just fought Stanionis, I kind of was like Jaron. Vergil, I think I'm sliding back now to Jaron after last night. The only thing is I haven't seen Jaron at 154. And I have to just say right now, Vergil has the better resume. Only because the fact that Majimov had such a competitive fight with Crawford, that I have to slightly give Vergil a little bit more credit that way. But that's just me just nitpicking on just trying to figure out who I feel like I give a little bit more umph. Styles make fights. You know, they're both undefeated fighters. They both can definitely crack. Anything can happen. So really, that doesn't really take away from the fact that Vergil can't win that fight. It's just kind of why I give a little bit more credit Vergil on resume this way, but I feel like Jaron would win the fight. You know, but it's a fight that needs to get made. Him and Bakram too, yeah. Bakram definitely is a threat that nobody wants to fight. You know, at 154, he destroyed Tim Tszyu, and after that, nobody wants to call him out. Nobody wants to fight him. Nobody wants to do anything. You know what I mean? Like what the hell? Like, someone need to get in the ring with him. Dwayne says, you looked familiar. I wanted to say hi, but you were busy. I met other fighters there too. Oh, Dwayne, you were at the short dog card. Yeah, I was there. I met other fighters too, Marquez. Yeah, so cool. You were probably like right next to me when I was interviewing them and stuff like that. So next time if I do go out to like a Maryland Pro Box event or something, just say what up. You know what I mean? That was a chill night. Sugar Ray Leonard was there. That was pretty cool, right? I don't know if you got to see him, but Sugar Ray Leonard was there earlier, so he was getting mobbed by fans like all the way out the door. So shoot. Vergil fight will look like Stanionis, but Vergil won't quit. He'll just take the beating. Yeah, I mean, I can't see Robert Garcia. Well, Robert does care about his fighters, but I just can't see Robert Garcia in a position where he would have to stop the fight. I think Vergil is a lot more durable, and but 154, man, Jaron will be punching harder, I would assume, right? You know, or maybe not. I mean, Vergil came from 140 to 154, so Vergil is not like a giant himself. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, I know Vergil has heart. Like, he has heart. So I think his pressure is going to be a lot more intense than Stanionis. And what sucks is, like, I wish we have, like, a time machine because Vergil, Ortiz, and Stanionis were going to fight each other. So if we were able to go back in time and then see what that fight was, like a parallel universe, see what Vergil would have looked like against Stanionis then, and then see what Jaron looked like. But either or, I mean, it's still a fight that even if Vergil beat Stanionis, then I still would have wanted to saw Jaron. So Fedor's too skinny, almost like a breadstick. Appreciate it, Thomas. Boots is the lineal champion, but he needs to fight Brian Norman Sr. next. 25-26. Both guys are active than Barrios. Both guys are coming off A+ championship performances. No excuse. Yeah. I mean, you raise a good point. I mean, he did beat up Santillan, and but I don't know. Something about Brian just right now just feels like he needs just a little bit more seasoning. You know, he is the youngest male world champion in the world, and I think personally, you know, I feel like if Jaron would to fight Brian Norman and beat him, just people would just say like he's just young and inexperienced. So, and I think if we look at potential future odds, I just can't see Jaron not being a favorable opponent. Then, you know, I wouldn't want to see Jaron just fight tougher opposition. You know, he had a great performance. He just made Stanionis look average at best. So, you know, have him fight some guys that are a lot more dangerous, a lot more seasoned, and that's guys at 154, personally. But, you know, plus, you know, I just don't want Jaron wasting his time just sitting around. If they can't get it together, you know, they can go back to the drawing board. If it works out next fight, then perfect. Then get the belt. But if it's taking a while, it's taking months, you know, just don't waste your time, don't waste your prime. Just go up and then fight some fights so that at a certain point, it gives Norman an opportunity to maybe fight other guys there, become maybe the next welterweight guy if he is. And then, you know, he moves up. And now we're talking, right? So where's Norman Jr. at? They saying he's moving to Japan. I mean, he might fight in Japan. You know, that might be already set up. And you know, so if that's set up, now Jaron has to sit around and wait, you know. And if Mario Barnes is fighting potentially Pacquiao, if that's true, Jaron has to wait. So instead of just sitting and waiting, just go up 154, man. You know, you did get the Stanionis fight, which is probably the best fight you can get at 147. So it's on to the next. Same with Fedor, who Tim Tszyu would have stopped under 6 without an elbow. Yeah, I mean, that first round, Tim definitely was like he was cracking Fedor, and then the blood came, and so. But I ain't want to take away credit from Fedor. He won the fight. Charles Conwell versus Fedor. Yeah, somebody need to fight Charles Conwell. Yo, Charles Conwell is a problem. Like, Charles Conwell needs a fight with somebody. Like Vergil, Fedor, Xander, Bakram. Oh my God, Charles Conwell versus Bakram. Please, someone give Charles Conwell a chance. That dude is a beast. Like, he is a problem. Like, he can fight in the inside. He has relentless pressure. He has good punch placements. He has a great chin. He's tough. He's durable. He has a great amateur background. Former Olympian. Give Charles Conwell. He was on the same Olympic team as Shakur Stevenson. You know? Many people don't know that, but Charles Conwell is a problem. And I don't want to get grim and dark, but people pray. I don't want to pray, but like, Matias was the boogeyman, right? Because, you know, he had a live body on his resume. Rest in peace to. But so does Charles Conwell. He's a guy who's willing to go in there and put a lot of pressure, fight you tooth and nail, and he's pretty scary. You know, I think that the only thing that separates Charles Conwell and a lot of these other guys is that he just doesn't have like a great opponent on his resume. So a lot of the opponents that he's fighting doesn't really give him credence on what he's capable of doing. He's just kind of like the eye test, and he's passing with flying colors. He just needs an opportunity with a guy with a good name or a good resume, and if he can get past that person, then we're all on board. Like, all of us are on board. But Charles, just looking on the outside in, I think Charles is a guy who just needs an opportunity, and if he looks great in that opportunity, then I think that could be possibly one of the best 154 pounders out there. So he's for sure the dark horse. Just needs to get an opportunity, and just kind of like Boots, man. You know, Boots is just needing opportunities. Charles just needs some opportunities, right? Because Because for a long time, you could just say, who has Jaron fought for a very long time? And that's what Charles is in. Boots has 74-inch reach, fighting guys who don't even go past 70, but he's pound for pound. Meanwhile, guys like Janibek fighting guys his size, and he's dominating them, but he's not even in discussion. Yeah, Janibek is a monster. Like I was saying that earlier, like TCP, like Janibek is a monster. Like he is probably could put himself as one of the best. You know what I mean? Like the same kind of situation. Like I would like to see him versus Carlos Adames, right? But you got to get that together. But Janibek is a monster. I wouldn't put. I don't know if I could put Boots or Janibek in pound for pound, and if I do, they're like just touching the grace of like 10. And it's not because I don't think those guys aren't capable of being pound for pound fighters. It's just, to be pound for pound, it's like your skill set is so good that if Terrence Crawford, Inoue, Canelo, Bivol, all those guys were the same exact size. So let's say Terrence Crawford Inoue was the size of Jaron Ennis. Like they were identical. Same reach, same height, same everything. That's what and it's pound for pound. Like I don't want to spend too much time. You know how this works. I feel like guys who move up multiple weight classes, they have kind of shown that their skill has been the reason why they were able to beat guys. It wasn't their size, it wasn't their height, it wasn't their reach, it wasn't anything but their skill. So Jaron Ennis looks talented, but when he moves up in weights, I think we'll start to understand pound for pound, level of skill. Because, if he's not having the opportunity to fight and clean up all the division and fight every person out there, just kind of just clean it out, then we have to see him move up in weight. So same with Janibek. Janibek hasn't really shown me that he can translate his skills against guys bigger than him, So, but they're both great fighters. Boots versus Flair Cobbs. Yeah, I mean, I got Jaron beating Boots. Blair. But it would be entertaining. I wanted that fight before the Stanionis fight only because the fact that it seemed like he wasn't going to get anybody. Why not get Blair to Flair then, right? I believe Boots would do very well at 154. He focuses more on his boxing skills than trying to get KOs. Yeah, I do too. I think he'll do well at 154. We just have to see him there. Blair Cobbs is a step down. Coming from Saturday, I mean, it would be considered a step down now. But when Boots wasn't getting opponents, I mean, that would have been a great opponent because Blair's coming off the Adrian Broner win. So Boots is the best 147, but Eddie wants me to acknowledge him as the best fighter right now. I see him just beating. Yeah, he's not the best fighter based off beating Stanionis. I think there's a lot of guys who've already established their career. And when you got guys that are already at the end of their career, like Usyk and Terrence and Bivol, and even guys like Canelo that gets left out pretty often now, those guys clearly still have like a lot more to show than what Jaron did last night. So it's just a matter of respect. What do you think about Monopoly playing Turkey with his TKO? I really don't know too much about it. I mean, they're claiming there's just going to be like some sort of league where they're not going to like destroy the other sanctions. I don't know. It's confusing, dude. There's something like, if you look it up, there's something police night that was about like they're trying to change the Ali Act. I don't know. I don't like how it sounds. So the money fight at 147 is Norman Jr. I agree. Well, I don't know. It depends, though, boy. Like the money fight, I mean, you could look at Mario Barrios and kind of put it on like Cinco de Mayo, Mexican independence. I mean, there's so many ways that you can flip a Mario Barrios fight as a money fight too. Like Norman Jr. is an entertaining fight for fight fans, but do people know him? People have at least seen Mario Barrios and Keith Thurman and Ugas, and if he does get the Manny Pacquiao fight, and by all means he beats Manny Pacquiao, then yeah, the money fight's in Mario Barrios. So it's clear as day that Norman is a desirable fight for fight fans, but Sebastian beat Tim's ass, ended his career, and he ended up Lubin's career. Zaya versus Boots. Vergil Stanionis would have been a draw. Meanwhile, guys like Jenna who get... Oh, yeah, I just read. Zaya's is a step down. How is Norman Jr. money fight when he's dead? Oh, okay. Boots did a good job. Just a fan of the... not a fan of slight showboating, him getting hit flush at times. Yeah. Yeah, I always like slick, defensive, elusive fighters that don't get hit. But I also like guys who fight and, and make it a gritty one. So, I mean... I'm entertained by Jaron. I won't bash his defense in a way where, like, I'm not entertained by his fights. Because if you're too defensive, you can have some boring fights, And I know Shakur has been criticized for many people for being too defensive. And their eyes, right? A guy who doesn't get hit but has no... I think Jaron has a good balance from offense and defense to be exciting between casuals. But as a hardcore boxing fan, I think we nitpick defense, and that lack of defense at times that Jaron shows is just, it's always gonna bug us. It's like, man, you got so many great attributes, but this defense need to tighten up a little bit. Like, you know what I mean? So I everyone gets hit. You know what I mean? And when you fight better opposition, you're gonna get hit more. All right, so. It's like this is the type of thing that we do in boxing, and I do it myself. But we want you to get hit less, hit more, and look better than you did in your last fight against better opposition. You know what I mean? Like it's like countering your point. Like Jaron Ennis. Your next fight, which I want is to be a step-up fight and a better opponent, to get hit less and hit him more. I want you to beat people up even better than you did before and get hit less against better opposition, tougher guys, more defensively sound guys, more offensively well put together guys, better IQ guys. That's what I want from you. It's like, well, no, it's going to get harder. That's what's going to happen. It's going to get harder, but I get it, myself included. I want you to get better while fighting better. And it's doable. We see it. But it's also understandable to know that when you start climbing up in competition, you may not look like the guy that you did prior. Yeah, it's just boxing, man. Everyone gets hit. But I don't know what it is. Like, maybe, I don't know. Maybe there's a certain expectation that I have about Boots because he's from Philly and he has that slick defensive role that maybe in my mind I'm thinking like he's supposed to not get hit so much, but he does. Why? So I don't know why it registers so badly in my mind that like I really don't want him to get hit as much. But yeah, that's just me. Norman's chinny, the guy is food. Yeah, I mean, there was that weird moment when he fought Derek Cuevas, and I don't know if it was the first or second round. We got caught with a hook. And kind of looked like he was a little buzzed, right? Like a little shook. He ate it well. Nothing came from it, but just reading his body, it felt like the shot kind of like shook him up a little bit. So, but Derek Cuevas is a known puncher. He has a lot of knockouts. When he was coming up early in the pros, he's been knocking a lot of guys out. So I'm not going to really put it past Norman because that's a guy that can punch from what I've understood. So what happened to Lithuanian Cuevas? Wow. We're going to say that. And still, Jaron Boots Ennis looks spectacular. Who's going to be the next future superstar boxing like Tank Canelo? Who do you think, folks? I don't know. There's a lot. There's a lot of guys that can make that happen. Cormel is a guy that's getting a lot of attention. Abdullah Mason is a guy that's getting a lot of attention. Keyshawn Davis is getting a lot of attention. There's a lot of names that are coming up. We just have to just see. Granted, if some of these fights get made a little bit quicker in their careers, I'll expedite that. So Boots has the most exciting style in boxing because he's so flashy. He tries to embarrass guys in their hole while he wins. The showboat and flashy defense, I don't see anyone else doing. He does. All other champions trying to just beat up guys. He's trying to beat the guy up while embarrassing them in the process is entertaining. Yeah, I mean, showboating has always been a thing in the sport of boxing. Either you enjoy or it turns you off. You know, when Roy Jones was doing it, people liked it, people hated it. You know what I mean? And so it's just a preference. I think showboating is like necessary at times, but doing too much of it can be like a mockery of the sport. So I don't think Jaron does it in a sense to mock. I think it's also like a way to discourage your opponent, just kind of like mentally and psychologically kind of let them know like they just not on this level, bro. And it's just kind of like a way to antagonize them a little bit and frustrate them. So showboating's part of the game as long as you just don't do it in a way where it's just like it doesn't distract or take away from you fighting. So and then me personally, I do like some showboating, like a little bit. You know, just let them know you ain't fucking with them. Like, you know, when Canelo swung and Floyd made a miss and he looked over like, yo, what was that? You know, that moments like that is a showboat, and it creates iconic moments in the sport. So Pernell Whitaker, when De La Hoya was throwing like 100 punches at him and he dodged all of them, and then he started kind of doing a funny dance at the end of the round. That's showboating. But those are iconic moments that if you don't do those, they wouldn't live in, you know, forever in our minds. So Philly. All right. I'm going to speed run through the chat because I know I'm way behind you guys. So let's see. I'm not hating Boots is a good fighter. He's probably going to be undisputed. I just not going to crown pound for pound. Again, I like Boots. Blah, blah, blah. Boots will stay at 154 at calls. He wants no parts of Ramos, Ortiz, Fendora, Boychuk, and Moya Zaylev. No, I can't say that Boots don't want any. You know, I just think that at that weird moment after the Karen fight, when they were kind of talking about 154 would be a potential option, and then he didn't take the Vergil fight because he wants to stay at 147, and that weird contradiction with Bozy said there was a contrast. Like, all that was messy, and him and Eddie. So, I think if that never happened, then I don't think we'd really be so pressed on it, Champy. So, but I just think whatever that saga that happened prior to the Stanionis fight has gave that conclusion that he doesn't want to fight at 154. He said he wanted to fight at 154, but I think at the end of the day, he wants other goals as well. And if he can't get those, then he would then maybe consider 154. But he's, you know, really pressed on wanting to be a welterweight undisputed. Maybe it's because the lineage of like Sugar Ray and Floyd, and he's not gonna say Bud, but like he understands like Terrence Crawford is the best welterweight of this era. And prior to those guys, there's other guys like, you know, Sugar Ray and Donald Curry and everyone else, that Pacquiao. So he wants to be part of that type of name because he probably grew up watching that. And to kind of say like I'm in the room of Floyd Mayweather, to say that I have a lineal welterweight champion, you know what I mean? Like to be crowned that guy. I think that's a desire of his probably from a childhood. Just, you know what I mean? It's kind of his indirect way of just kind of matching some of his heroes, you know? So, but he'll be at 154. What people don't understand is pound for pound is all year round changing this. Oh, yeah. You can be on the pound for pound and have one bad performance and get knocked out the top 10. Like, it's subjective, very fickle. I'm fickle with my. That's why I don't even really spend time on a pound for pound list. It just doesn't really. It's just a waste of time. Boots will run from Tio. I don't think so. That's crazy. If you make weight, you make weight. Oh yeah, that's the weight bully stuff. Drawn will go undisputed like Brian Norman, but Boots is a different. I know you say you like Brian Norman. You can't be a weight bully if you make weight. Yep. You can call 90% boxers weight bullies. I don't know why people say that. Yeah, I mean, I think the idea when people talk about weight bullies, just like, it's just how much of an advantage do you have of that person that people start to feel like, are you even fighting in the same weight class? And I think Jaron does have a sizable size against welterweights. I think Fedor has a sizable weight, size against 154. It's just that's just kind of what, Devin Haney had a sizable advantage over guys at 135. Teofimo was sizable, bigger than guys at 135. So I think what people kind of just get into the idea of just saying, like, fight someone your size so that we can feel like it's not you being physically bigger or longer or taller by a large measuring stick. Like, just, everyone's going to have different shapes and sizes. It's always going to be a guy taller and longer. But it's just like nothing like that much of a difference where clearly it's going to give you a huge advantage if you fight. And it's a true thing. I think that's why people appreciate guys moving up, because then it takes away from the idea that they have a physical attribute, and it really just comes down to their skill and their ability is the reason why they won. All right. That's why we praise guys like Manny Pacquiao or, Duran or, Sugar Ray or Floyd or Canelo or Terrence or Usyk or, you know what I mean? Like, just guys who consistently move up and show that size does not matter. You could be bigger than them, taller than them, longer reach. I'm just still better than you. And I think when people see the guys who does have the consistent advantage, they don't really get the credit as often, So I got Salas beating Boots. Oh, Ella Magic Salas. Tio is bigger than Canelo. Tio is bigger than Canelo. I don't know about that. Tio's bigger than Canelo. Just ingrained what Tio do. What he's not bigger than Canelo. I mean, and I guess I'm talking about, like, let me see, Canelo. Tio. I mean, Tio, like, he's a lean guy. Like, he's lean. I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, when you're probably looking at attributes, I don't know. I just feel like maybe my mind is just constantly thinking Canelo's just bigger because he fights at a bigger weight class, but he's acclimated at that weight class. So I think if hypothetically Tio is by all means bigger, it's Canelo's more acclimated. So I don't know. Tio has to get acclimated moving up. Look at Vergil. He was big at 147 to stop, and everyone, where's the stoppages go at 154? This is why I don't crown fighters pound for pound so fast. He got like, I think one or two stoppages at 154, but it's just a matter of, like, I think the competition he was fighting at 140 and 147 are probably not as tough as the guys at yeah, I would say the opponents he fought at 154 are better than the ones he fought at 147. So, Boots would break Tio. Yeah, I think Boots would beat Tio. Tio's already a pound for pound fan. Be real. Tio goes in and out the pound for pound just based off his inconsistency. It's like, all right, you done something great, back in. Oh, you look kind of average, back out. Oh, you look great, back in. So, all right. Let me skip around just a little bit more. Sorry if I missed some of your guys' stuff. I'm just trying to just get caught up with the action of the chat. Let me see. Boots says 35 fights, just fought for the reign. Tio beat Loma in 15 fights, beat Tio in 20. Yeah, but keep in mind, Tio also had the opportunity to do those. So you can't really knock certain fighters when they don't have the luxury of fighting guys at an early age or be in a position to fight guys early in their career. So, you know how politics goes. They're signing with the right promoter at the right time with the right people. Does Norman beat Karen? That's an interesting fight. It's a risky fight for Norman. And I think it's a fight that I would like to see. But would they probably do it? Probably not. I would like to see Boots unify at 147. It's time now. Crawford and Spence are out of the equation. It's Boots' era now. Yeah, I would like to see him unify as well, just to say he did it. But I think there's better opponents for him out there, James. But if that's his goal and he can do it, then I'm with it. It's definitely, he is the best welterweight in the world. So, yeah, Sun crashed the part. Does Sergey Boychuk beat Boots? Really think about that. I would favor Jaron. But don't. But the thing is, style make fights if it's a triangle theory. I mean, I still got Jaron beating Vergil too, but it's slight. But Boychuk would be a step up in opposition than Stanionis because he's a guy that's active. He is busy, he's strong, he's durable, and arguably beat Vergil Ortiz. So it would be a step up. It would definitely be a step up. So that's a tougher fight for Jaron. So I would like to see it. Undisputed in a shit weight class means nothing. Yeah, I agree. Turkey wants to see Teofimo lose. What up, TV Boxeo? Bro Fendor is a weak champ, period. Matter of time, that lanky ass. Undisputed is undisputed. If you get all the belts, you're that guy. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm just being realistic. I just don't think the stars will align for that fight. Karen's a solid pro with good amateur background. Haters, do your homework. Yeah, I mean, he became mandatory for a reason. He's a tricky Ukrainian fighter, which a lot of Ukrainians seem to have really good footwork in this era, so. Is Boots a defensive wizard? No. Does Boots give exciting performances and want to give the best in Undisputed? Absolutely. Haters, stop hating. Yeah, I don't think Boots is ducking. I think he wants to fight the best. And I think that if he gets the opportunity, he'll take it. But if he can't get the 147 opportunity, then just go up to 154. It's not his fault 147 weak. All he can do is just keep knocking the door of greatness. Yeah, you can't really fault him in his division either. So, because even before the Stanionis fight, there was a lot of questions. I had questions. And I'm transparent. I didn't pick Jaron stopping in the middle of the fight and breaking him down. I thought either he was going to potentially maybe clip him early or it just go 12. I actually thought it was going to go 12. That's really what I thought. It will go 12. So, I don't see Boots versus Norman next. I want Norman versus Barrios and Boots versus... Yeah. That would be something where it'll give Norman more season, get him more acclimated, and I agree. Jaron should focus on Brian Norman Jr. first. If you can't get either, then those fights, then he moves up. I agree. I think we're in sync with all that. Blah, 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 blah. I see a lot of Laura talking here. Tim Zoo's cooked. Thurman finna finish Tim. Oh, man, dude. If Thurman comes in that boy and wrecks Tim, I'm actually pretty excited for that fight now. Knowing that, Tim's a lot more vulnerable. I thought it was kind of a bad fight for Thurman at first, but now it's a good fight. Yeah, Dark Horse at 154 is Charles Conwell. But should snatch the title from Bakram. I don't think he's going down to 154. I think it's Canelo and done. All right. Let me skip way to the beginning. I'm sorry if I skipped some of your stuff. I'm just trying to get caught up with the chat. Norman is only considered a money fight because of Norman's senior mouth. I don't even really think it's a money fight. I think it's a fight right now that just a lot of hardcore boxing fans are interested in. When I hear money fight to me is like Mario Barrios goes out and fights and beats Pacquiao, and now Boots is fighting Mario Barrios off the cusp of the win of Pacquiao. That's a money fight because casuals will know who Mario Barrios is, and he's the guy that beat Manny Pacquiao. Let's say he dropped Manny Pacquiao or stopped Manny Pacquiao or something. Now it's oh my God, the guy that knocked out Manny Pacquiao, Boots is fighting him. That's considered, my opinion, of a money fight. Norman is just a fight where hardcore boxing fans will watch. It'll probably be in Philly. It's probably, Philly turnout. All the money would be coming from hardcore boxing fans, Philly fans, things like that. So, but that's just my perspective of a money fight. But over time, if Norman keeps winning and Senior keeps talking, then then that becomes like a money fight in a way where like it's kind of like how Devin is, and his dad kind of helps build up fights. But keep in mind, just because there's a dad that talks trash doesn't always translate into big money fights. So it could just turn into a fight where there's just antics and trash talking involved. I thought Stanionis was gonna be tougher than that. They hyped him up good. Yo, C6, he was actually, to be honest, C6, he was tougher than I thought watching him, because he was landing some really solid flush shots, better than I've seen in his previous fights. I think it's just Jaron Ennis just rose to the occasion, and I think they both stepped their game up, but Jaron stepped his game up even more. You know what I mean? So I don't want to say, Jaron fought someone that wasn't solid. That was a very good win. And now, what does Jaron Ennis do with that momentum? I think that was a very good, solid win. I felt like if Spence or Crawford, fought Stanionis, it would have been a sizable good win. Clearly, they won't get the credit because of like, at the point of their career, what they were considered as like top 5 pound for pound, But at this point of Jaron Ennis' career, this is no different from guys that like when Errol Spence fought the guys in his career coming up on the come up, or Crawford. This is one of those, and it's on to bigger and better things. And I didn't really, and when you really kind of look at it, you started to see Jaron separate himself from Stanionis. In the beginning, it didn't look easy. Stanionis was laying in some stuff where you kind of actually, if you're really a Jaron Ennis fan, like a fanboy, you kind of have to look at those early rounds in real time and be a little frustrated. Like, yo, fucking Boots, stop getting hit by this shit, bro. So there was some moments early on in the fight, but Jaron separated himself, made adjustments, and then made it easy. Took him apart, broke him down, and then kept the pressure on and never let his hands not stop throwing, and got him out of there. So all credit really to Jaron, That was a way better version of Jaron than I've seen in a lot of other fights, So Shakur does get hit because he backs up all night. I mean, everyone gets hit. Shakur really doesn't really get hit too much. Everyone gets hit, but if you were comparing Shakur and Jaron got hit a lot. But Jaron always gets hit a lot. I'm kind of just accepting, like, he gets hit. It is what it is. He's not like a defensive wizard, Abdullah is gonna get knocked out. He drops when his chin gets touched. Not hating. He's already been dropped by him. Yeah, I mean, we gotta see over time. The only reason why I just can't like go too hard on that is because, like, if you do some research, before Ali fought Sonny Liston, Ali's been dropped, by a non-champion. Andre Ward has been dropped, by Darnell Boone early in his career, allegedly. He was seeing stars. People get dropped early in their career, so I'm not gonna knock that. But at the same time, it does raise the eyebrow a little bit. Like, you shouldn't be getting dropped by guys like this early in your career. But it does happen to some of the greats. Sugar Ray Leonard has been, I think, had like a knockdown counted against him. Against, I think, Mickey Ward's brother or cousin or uncle or something. I don't know. So, I mean, it happens. It happens. But it does raise red flags. It does put you in a position where you have to kind of pump the brakes a little bit. And, I think Abdullah has learned from that, and we'll see from going forward. All right. I understand these pluses that Fundora has, but I'm not understanding why we're making him seem more than a stepping stone for Boots. No, that's another incredible, tough fight. I would favor Jaron, but I don't see Jaron. Like, I'll be honest. I don't see Jaron at any point right now, if he goes up at 154, having any fight where he looks like he's dominating from the first round to the 12th. I think he's a guy, when he moves up and fights tougher opposition, he's going to have some adversity, and then you'll see him overcome the adversity, and then he'll separate himself. But they're all guys where you're going to be put in a position, you're going to have to make an adjustment, you're going to have to be in good conditioning, you're going to have to train hard, you're going to have to take some chances, you're going to have to use some IQ and wit, and then at that point, now it looks easy. But really, at the end of the day, they're not easy fights, you know. I think 154 will be a really good weight class for Jaron to really show the world how good he is. Crawford's not the best at 147 in this era. You are high. Well, I think it's a very popular opinion that Crawford was the best at 147 in this era. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of people, even after what Boots looked like last night, that there's still a sizable more group of people that feel like Bud will beat Boots. Like, Terrence Crawford. Did I say Jaron beat Boots? I mean, Bud beats Jaron. Like, Terrence Crawford has solidified himself as a solid top 147 pounder, you know? I know there's a lot of stuff about Spence post-car crash and stuff like that, but, you know, he's always been the favorite against Spence prior, and it just shows that a guy that came up from 135, 140, if you want to say he was kind of a big weight bully then, he was smaller than Spence, dominated Spence, you know, he fought solid guys, you know, Mean Machine, who was a guy who people don't really give credit, gave Vergil Ortiz a good fight, you know, fought Sean Porter, you know, first one to stop Jose Benavidez, who later you saw Jamal Charlo couldn't stop. You know, I think at the end of the day, Terrence Crawford really won't be debated as like not like in his era amongst the guys of like Spence and Thurman and Porter and things like that. Like, that was his era, and he was the best at that era, you know? So, I would have loved to seen Crawford versus Boots. I think, you know, after the Spence fight, Jaron was the most sensible welterweight fight. I think it would have been the most sensible fight for Crawford if he wanted to stamp his legacy. But, you know, high risk, low reward, really wasn't nothing there for him. So, and I think it would have been a situation would have been like Thurman and Floyd, all right? I would favor Bud beating Boots, like I would have favored Floyd beating Thurman. But if they stayed in the division long enough, then those are fights that I would have wanted to see. And would Thurman had an opportunity? Probably less of an opportunity than Boots versus Bud. But I give any future up-and-coming next top welterweight a chance to beat the previous one. So, without a doubt. Boots displayed he's on another level. Excited to see his growth. Love the way the team is developing him. First weekend of May is going to be a great weekend of boxing. Yeah, there's a lot of fights going on that week. Us as fans sometimes be tripping. It's amazing what a great win would do. Yeah, and this goes for myself too. Like, I'm very fickle. I'm very inconsistent, and I may contradict. It's just the boxing fan nature to be like, you want more, and you also want to criticize. You know, it's like, well, of course he's supposed to do that. I want more, or he shouldn't be getting hit by this, or of course he was supposed to. He's just like, you know, it's just very easy to be very pessimistic, you know, and critiquing at a level where it's hard sometimes to appreciate. So I'm taking this approach this Sunday to appreciate Jaron Ennis opposed to criticize, because I have been very critical of Jaron for a little bit, especially after the Karen fight. So I did kind of expect the fight to go the distance, and Jaron made it end pretty quick. So I have no choice but to give my flowers for that performance that night. Now just be consistent, go fight good competition, be consistent with it, and then, then now we're talking, right? And I'm not saying that Jaron hasn't been consistent. Like, he's won all his fights without controversies. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, I'm looking at Jaron as a guy who could potentially be like top 5, top 3 pound for pound in the future. And if that's the case, then I have to grade you at a higher, like if I'm grading you just as a champion, that's completely different than me grading you as a potential pound for pound top guy, right? So, Infamous. I never expected Boots to lose. You can go back in that live and clip it. You can give me your like PayPal, and if you can find me ever saying that I think Boots will lose to Stanionis, I'll give you like $500, just straight up. You can just go. There's like that's easy money. You can go in. It's like a 2-hour live, previous live. Just skim through it. Find me saying that I choose Stanionis to beat Boots. And if you can find that, I'll give you like 500 straight up. My question was he going to look spectacular? Was he going to look above average? Is he a guy that we can continue to praise and think one day that he could be top 3, top 2 pound for pound? And if so, he needs to have spectacular performances of guys where he's a 4-1 favorite off the bookies and not just win. You know what I'm saying? So, definitely have never said he was going to lose. Was I critical in a way where maybe in the past I would have thought Jaron would have dismantled him and stop him the way he did Saturday? I was on that hype train where I felt that Jaron couldn't do no wrong and Jaron was always going to destroy and knock out guys. It was more of the matter of the fashion that Jaron was going to win. Was he going to win in an ugly 12-round fight, or was he going to destroy him? And I chose what I felt was the safer bet, was that he was going to go 12 in a fight where potentially, there's going to be some moments where you're kind of seeing him kind of struggle a little bit, but he overcomes it. But never fully gets that satisfaction of getting him out of there in the way that he did Saturday. And so because he did it, now, we're back in the comfort zone of saying, well, Jaron potentially could be top 3 pound for pound in the near future. And that's what you need to do. So, but yes, I have been critical, and I think I'm not the only one. I think everyone in the boxing world has been critical. So I'm happy that he was able to perform on the biggest stage of his career, and he was able to do it at the most meaningful point of his career. And now hopefully other guys get in line and want to fight him, because what originally seemed like nobody wanted to fight him, then now it seems like more people were willing to fight when he looked more vulnerable. So now he looks like the beast that he did prior. And so let's just see if other guys are willing to fight him like they said they would. So it's impossible to compare the 80s era fighters today with the exception of Floyd or Manny, who could function on someday weigh-in. Now it's like over 30 hours to rehydrate. I try not to go too much in the past and compare, because one, I'm not as extensive. And what I mean extensive is like I'm surface level. I would have to like go in the 80s and cover it, because things I know about boxing now as a reporter versus just a fan are completely night and day difference. But who with the exception of Floyd, who could function on someday weigh-in, now it's like over 30 hours to rehydrate. I mean, at the end of the day, Jaron did the IBF rehydration clause, you know what I mean? So he kind of didn't have the luxury of having 30 hours to rehydrate for his last couple fights. So, yo, what up? My boy Greg Hackett in the building, man. Man, I think I saw your prediction. You called it to the T, man. You called it. I think you said like somewhere around like mid that he was going to stop Stanionis. And he did. Yo, he looked really good. And to be honest, I know that you've been a huge supporter of Jaron. And I know that, are you talking about they have to fight now? Who you talking about they have to fight? You talking about, Vergil, Brian, who got to fight? Who got to fight? Because I think everybody got to fight Jaron. I think everybody got to fight Jaron. So, but yeah, I know you've heard all the criticism, and I'm sure you probably thought the criticism was fair and valid, right? In a public perception, because he didn't look. How would I say? You understood the criticism that was said, right? But you knew what he was capable of doing, and you were a firm believer of it, and that's why you went in there saying that you said between 5 and 7. Yeah. If you were like, nah, man, Boots is that guy. Everyone who I know that was like, I know he had like some performances that didn't please the fans, but I'm telling you, he's still that guy. And if you still think he's that guy, he's stopping him middle of the round. And everyone who felt that way and didn't get off the train, the bandwagon, or played it safe, right? Like I played it safe. I said decision is going 12, right? Maybe with a knockdown, right? Maybe. But you called it. You know, Boots is still that guy. And so now, yeah, Norman and Barrios. Where the link at? You want to jump up on here? I got you, Greg. All right. I'm going to get my boy Greg up here. Give me a sec. Also, you know what's crazy? It's almost like Philly as like Fulton and Jaron kind of both went through kind of a situation where like they took a lot of criticism, and then now here they are coming off one of their biggest wins. So a lot has changed in the perception of between those two. So hold on. Hold on. Give me 1 second, Greg. I'm just getting I haven't even pulled my StreamYard link for a while. Yeah, Boost UD. Yeah, a lot of people had that. You know, what's crazy is like, it really was it was the battle. Is Boost gonna win by UD or a stoppage? I know there was a lot of people that thought Stanionis was gonna win, but I think the real criticism was, is he gonna be able to get this guy out and look like that guy? So. Where is it? Hold on, give me 1 quick second, Greg. Boo's daddy was using Bud's name. Y'all now need to read between the lines. He's not ready for Bud. Nah, Bozy wasn't using him for his name. I think they just were. They just wanted to fight. I think he just wanted to fight. He just wanted to prove himself. You know, anytime you got a top guy in your division, you want to fight those guys because there's so much upside that comes with it. Money, notoriety, legacy. I mean, I think it would be a fool to think like as a fighter that you wouldn't want to fight the top guy. And I think that would be, it's strange for you to be like, nah, I really don't want to fight the top guy in my division, let alone arguably potentially the best fighter on pound for pound ratings. I think that's absolutely insane to say, nah, you don't want it. And to be fair on, Bud's end, Bud was in a different point of his career where he was just not, okay, here we go. Sorry, it took me a minute to figure out how to do this again. Allow this while visiting the site. Boom. 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 All right. All right. Let me get this. Screen sharing. All right, Greg, you can jump in there. I threw it in there. Let me see. Hold on. Let me... Camera frame. There we go. But no, I think they just wanted to actually get the fight that they wanted. You know what I mean? He said he wanted all the belts and got his wish was to unify. So why would he move up and fight a dude with no belt, with no fan base? That's if he can't get Mario or Brian Norman. You know, it's all politics at the end of the day. So Vergil ducked Moritayev. I really don't even know what happened with that. I know that the main event claimed there was a contract that they got to sign for Alcatraz for next year. Senior was on social media saying he didn't really know much about it. So, yeah, you played it safe. Yeah, I played it safe. Boots, no Mas, Stanionis. Let me see. Oh, my bad, Greg. I didn't even hear the noise that beeped in. Can you hear me?
I can't hear.
You can't hear me? Hold on.
Yeah, I can't hear you. Hold on.
Give me 1 second. Audio, default, mic. All right, hold on. All right, give me 1 second. I think I fixed it, Greg. Ron, do you remember the sanctioned bodies calling out Vergil for ducking Bud and Boots 2 times? Yeah. I mean, Vergil definitely didn't take the Bud fight. Like, he definitely didn't activate those mandatories. But you know what? It's like a fine line where it's like, did you want Vergil to fight Bud at that point in the time? You know what I mean? Like, you know, you only get an opportunity once, right? So, all right, there we go. All right, how about now? Does that work?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, cool. Let me get you up, and let me get you right. All right. Boom, boom. What's going on, man? Let me get this. How you feeling today, man? I know you feeling good.
I'm chilling. Yeah, I'm chilling. I feel good for sure.
Yo, at the end of the day, man, I know there was a lot of criticism about Jaron Ennis, you know, in his previous fight.
It just went back out again.
Yeah. Oh, the audio went out? You still can't hear me?
No, I still can't hear.
Check. check. I see levels on my side. Check.
No, I can't hear nothing.
How about now?
Want me to jump back out again?
Yeah, just try it again. Let's see. You guys can hear me out on the stream, right? Hold on. I have no idea why this isn't working. I got Boots outclassing Ortiz. Tio versus Boots would be a great one also. I don't know. I think Boots would beat Tio. I'm not really a fan of the Tio fight. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Let me all right, hopefully it doesn't cut out right here. Let me see. I got to make sure that they can hear Greg. Can you guys hear Greg right now?
Testing.
All right, yeah, they can hear you. I see the levels. All right. Cool, man. All right, man, look, I know there was a lot of criticism, right, with Jaron in his previous fights. I took the safe route. I thought that the fight could have went the distance, right? Knowing that Stanionis is a tough guy. He's durable, hasn't been stopped. And there's always been this allure for a long time that Jaron Ennis is and was the best welterweight. You know, after the Crawford and Spence left, he's going to destroy everybody. He's going to knock everybody out. He's going to make it look easy, right? Mm-hmm. So that expectation of that is very unrealistic. But the criticism comes with that, right? Because that's what we were led to believe. So once he kind of had some of those kind of performances, this Stanionis fight was a tough fight for him to not just win, but look spectacular in. Because he could just win, but that wouldn't really done much. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
the way that he did that on the big stage, like do you feel like it answered a lot of those questions that first we believed, then we jumped off, and now we're back on because, you know, he looked amazing?
if you understand life, right, and if you understand boxing, that's going to happen every fight. You want to know why? Every fight is going to be different. Styles, that's why they use the term styles make fights. People say shit and don't really know what it means. They don't understand what it means. When you look at Karen and you look at what's his name, he just fought last night, Stanionis. People would say Stanionis is the better fighter because he has, at the time, he had no losses. You know what I mean? And he was a tough guy, and we seen him before. But they would look at Karen and say he's not that good because we don't know him. But Karen really is a better fighter than Stanionis, style wise. He has better ability, faster feet. I think he throws better combinations. You know what I mean? I think he's a sharper fighter. Stanionis is just tough. You know what I mean? He's just tough, but he's playing checkers. He's not playing chess. The reason I'm saying he's playing checkers, he's only stepping to you. That's his gift. Stepping to you and trying to wear you out, hoping that he can hit you with a shot that you respect, or either it's a shot that puts you out. So to be honest, to me, Stanionis wasn't his toughest fight. Stanionis was just his most decorated name up to date.
You also ever feel like sometimes fighters rise to the occasion because, granted, that um, a lot of people was chirping on the, that okay, he's not that guy. He's good, but he's not pound for pound future star Sugar Ray Leonard, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao. Like that's the type of level of praise he was getting, and so
Yeah,
because of it, you think that because he knew what was at stake, that potentially, even though that Karen had more success, Jaron came also on top of what you're saying, but just kind of came and knew what this moment was, that if Karen was the guy in this position, do you think it would have maybe put, you know what I mean? Because the mindset I've heard you talk about was he fought Karen before, he's disinterested, maybe unmotivated, not taking away from Karen's skill, but if you swap places and Stanionis was a guy he fought twice, but Karen was the undefeated guy, the champion, and he had criticism from the Stanionis fight, would we've seen maybe potentially a Jaron dismantle Karen in the sense that Jaron just was mentally like locked in on top of that?
the mental part always play a part, but the thing is, the styles are going to matter. The styles, the reason you getting the fight that you're getting is because of the styles, bro. When you got a guy who just think he gonna walk up on you and just be, he gonna rip you apart. That's everybody not going for that. So with a guy like Boots, you putting yourself in fire. You know what I'm saying? Karen did the opposite. Him rising to the occasion, yeah, that's what you have to do every time you get in the ring. You know what I mean? He still beat Karen most of the rounds, got the wins both time. But this fight looked like that simply because Stanionis didn't do his homework. Stanionis didn't try to change anything in what he does. He just thought, all right, I'm gonna step to this guy and I'm gonna break him. You know what I mean? And that's why the results were the results. Of course, Bruce Ennis wants to prove a point. Of course, he wants people to understand I am the real thing. But that's not what it's about. It's just I'm doing my job. You know what I mean? It is what it is.
So I saw you were in the chat saying that they gotta fight him now. Mario
Yeah.
Barrios and Norman. Do you even think that's even something that's realistic? Because politics has been a thing where it didn't seem like this fight was gonna happen. Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I was very shocked that Eddie was able to get this together and
Yeah.
get Stanionis and PBC and Tom Brown and all of them to, obviously money talks, but to get now Norman and Mario, two guys that probably want a good sizable amount of money to make the fight.
Yeah.
You even think that it's something that Jerron should even entertain for a long time, and
Here's the thing. I think Barrios is a good fighter. I think Norman is a good fighter. But are they are they elite talent? Are they the next best thing? No, not in my eyes. If it was me, as far as the promoters, I would try to get, yeah, as much as I could to sacrifice my guys and put them in there. And I'm sorry to use those kind of words, but I mean that's what it is. I don't think they can beat them, and that's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but I don't think those guys can beat them. But let's be real: if they don't fight Boots in this, are these going to be two guys that we really talking about? They don't really, you know what I'm saying? They don't really have it. Boots is not the type of guy personality wise that we follow, but style wise in the ring, he's one of those guys we're gonna talk about for a long time. Norman doesn't have that, and Barrios don't have that. So why y'all keep holding on to the belts? It ain't making sense to just hold on. You might as well go ahead and take a chance in life.
If it doesn't happen, right? Because I know that there was a lot of miscommunication on the Vergil Ortiz thing, right? Like I know
Hmm.
that um, it wasn't what it seemed to be, right? It seemed like,
Hmm.
allegedly Jaron was offered a fight for Vergil, and then essentially the word duck started floating around, which I know
Hmm.
there's probably a lot of miscommunication in that sense. So, but if the 147 fights doesn't really happen, and it seemed like he did fight on paper the best guy that he could, right?
Hmm.
And it seems like the best guy in the division outside of himself. Is 154 just like obvious, or do we wait for To? Um, a guy who has a name, has accolades in smaller divisions, has
Hmm.
freaky athleticism.
Hmm.
Do we wait for a Teofimo Lopez fight that can give him more cachet amongst notoriety,
Hmm.
or 154 and kind of silence the guy saying, "Hey, I was able to be unified, became lineal
Hmm.
147. Now bring on 154."
Yeah, I would go to 54. I wouldn't sit and wait for nobody and keep making 47. And then you never know what these guys' plans are going to be. T.O., Ryan, you don't know what these guys are going to do. Devin, you don't know what they're going to come up with. You know what I mean? If you try to sit and wait for them, you got your own career. So I would say go to 54 and get it popping.
Yeah. Is there anyone in particular? I mean, that you like? I mean, I know all of them, but if you had a structure of order, right? If he
Yeah.
went to 154, who would you like to see him take on and why?
I mean, you got your Keith Thurmans, you got your Tim Zoos, you got I mean any of the guys at
Mm-hmm.
54. Any of the guy Bakram, you got Boachuk, you got I mean it's plenty of guys, man. It's plenty. 54 is loaded.
Yeah. Is there anyone that you feel that could probably bring Jaron Ennis at his peak in 154, or does he have to go beyond 154?
Yeah, I think it's a few guys that's gonna give him a good run because they bigger guys, you know what I mean? So you got to put more on them. But I think the biggest test is always going to be the tallest guy in the division, Fundora,
Yeah.
because he's just a big guy, you know what I mean? He's surprising because he's comfortable in the inside. He throw an uppercut that you can't see, you know what I mean? And he's very determined. So that Fundora fight is always going to be one that's sitting in my head, as like one of the biggest fights.
That's interesting because in the chat we were debating on it, and you brought up the uppercut, which he has a long, lanky, whipping uppercut that he gets a lot of good
Yeah,
leverage from.
yeah,
But there was someone in the chat specifically was like, Fedora would destroy Boots is how they described it, but a lot of people were like, no, we've seen him lose, we've seen Brian Mendoza, X, Y, and Z. Vergil will give a better fight, Bach will give a better fight. Do you feel like Fedora is like potentially stylist, style wise, like you emphasize, but the hardest fight for Boots?
the reason I say that is because how do you prepare for that guy? What I mean by that is we get sparring partners who can mimic the style and things like that, but these are average size guys. This guy's not an average size. So who do you know 154 pounds or 160 pounds walking around at 6'6", 6'7" that can, give you that type of work? That's why to me it's hard to prepare for him. I think Boots will have a hard time preparing for him? No, because he really get ready for anything. He'll be fighting a guy with an orthodox style and still be sparring southpaws. He don't really let that get into him as far as preparing. But it's just fighting somebody that tall. It's just a tough task.
What do you think about Virgil? Because I know that.
Him and Virgil fighting, Boots and Virgil.
Do you think that's a
I think
style where he's like you mentioned because he comes forward more often than none?
Yeah, I think that's a great fight. I think it's a great fight because Virgil got the size to do that. But at the same time, it's gonna be a lot of risk taking from both sides. But I think that fight will happen, and I think that'll be a great fight.
hmm
Hmm.
Um, you don't have to like give details on this because ironically, I came down to Philly right after Jaron sparred Brian Norman.
Mm-hmm.
So, but, and this was like, I think, when I brought my girl down, it was like, I think a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember they just got done sparring. So, were you at the sparring session? And I know you don't have to go in details, but Bozy, brought up at the post conference, like, we sparred them, kind of like confident, like, we sparred them, like, they know what's up and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, by by for how it just came together now, like they seem extremely confident. And when someone says, "Oh, we know," they know how sparring went. That usually means like, "Hey, we beat them up." Like we.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you think if that was the case? You don't have to say if it was or not, but if that was the case, that they are now very confident that they can take on Jaron, knowing if that was the truth.
It's not the truth. He's not confident. If you listen to his father talk on an interview the other day, he said at one point he thought his son was just a gym fighter. You understand? So what that means is my son can't perform the way I think he should be performing in these actual fights. Now he said he also did say that my son showed me that he can, but letting us know that the little bit of doubt was there is letting me know you're not really truly 100% sure when it comes to your son. Here's the thing. Your son has never been in there with a Boots Ennis with 8-ounce gloves on. You know what I mean? Yeah, they sparred each other, and yeah, he do know what it is when it comes to this the sparring part of it. But being in an actual fight, he don't want to see his son in that situation. That's why they already turned down the first offer, the first time when they were supposed to be setting up the fight. That's why they turned it down. Me, honestly, it's another thing he keeps speaking on his son being 24 years old. What he's trying to push to the people is he's young. We don't have to take a fight with Boots in this. They saying they want the fight, but they don't want the fight. Trust me.
Do you think he raises a little point in that sense? Because like if Duran, which I feel is the best welterweight, and he definitely proved it Saturday, that to a certain point he does have the belt. You can't really go backwards when you are a champion. But um, if he's 24, he's this guy that's developing. Duran is being talked about. Fighting guys at another division now. Taller guys, bigger, stronger guys. Even just Bud's name is resurfacing, around on social media just because of how dominant he looks. So, I mean, is it as a fight fan like yourself, like if there was belt or no belt, would you even want to see the fight? Because Norman says that his son is so young and he has all this time, kind of like
I never understood a champion still trying to develop. I don't get that. Once you become champion, you there for the best. You there to continue to be the best. So who really entertains that? A champion wanting to still be developed. You know what I mean? So why did you even take the shot at being champion? You know what I'm saying? You wasn't thinking about development when the belt was on the line. You know what I mean? Now all of a sudden we want to keep talking about development. So to me, nah, I don't really even believe that. I think that's just a way of trying to talk around the fight. You know what I mean? They know what it is. They know it's time. Make the fight happen. You know what I mean?
I know this sounds like disrespect to like Mario Barrios, but it seems like Norman, probably because of like the trash talking that's gone on social media, but you
Mm-hmm.
know, um, I see TM in the chat says like, why is nobody mentioning Mario Barrios, right?
Mm.
Like, do you feel like Mario Barrios is better than Norman, um, or you
I
feel like the
think
other way around?
Mario Barrios to me is a good fighter because he's shown ability that we didn't think he had. You know what I mean? Even when he lost to Tank, he was a tough fight for Tank. It wasn't easy. But to come back, go to 47, win a title, put on a good performance against Ugas, but then not look so good against what was his last fight?
Ramos.
Yeah, Ramos. You know what I mean? He give you that like he 50-50 type of feeling. But Barrios is being quiet because that's the best thing for him to do right now. Stay quiet. There's no need in putting yourself in the line of fire, even though you got the title. You know what I mean? What Norman is doing is putting himself in the line of fire, but he's trying to duck the bullets. Like you're not gonna duck everything. You know what I'm saying? So you're gonna have to hop out there. Barrios, the reason I'm saying it's cool for him to stay quiet is because that way nobody mentions his name, but he's still champion. You know what I'm saying? But we want the Barrios fight too. I would like to see that fight too. You know what I mean?
Do you feel like Barrios is better than Norman? I know styles make fights, but if we had to do a rating scale, right? You know, Jaron was 1, Stanionis was 2. Who's 3 and 4 then?
I would say Barrios is 3.
Yeah.
And Norman is 4. Norman just beat a guy that we wasn't nobody was talking about that guy. And if you look back at that guy record, he never fought anybody that we know. No disrespect to his career, but he never fought anybody that we know to say that he was actually a dangerous guy. Yeah, he's dangerous because he's a grown man and he could punch a little bit, but it's not no like real, you know what I'm saying? We
Mm-hmm.
don't know. And Norman did what he was supposed to do, but Barrios beat a guy like Ugas. That's a real guy. You know what I'm saying? When you got wins like that, it's a real guy. So because of the records, I would give, Barrios the number 3 spot. But now Barrios move up to number 2 because Stanionis is knocked off now.
Yeah. So in that sense, if Mario and Norman fought each other, right? Because I've heard
Mhm.
people, I think Danny Garcia was saying it. He would like to see Norman and Mario Barrios face each other, so that it's
Mhm.
kind of like now we got an undisputed 2 guys, kind of tournament style, right? And if they fought each other, styles make fights. I emphasize that because I know how much that actually matters in matchmaking. But
Mhm.
does Norman style beat Mario Barrios if they faced each other?
I mean, that would be something you would have to see because they both to me they both iffy. You know what I mean? Different guys show up. And again, because styles make fights, but it's some things that you see that's like something don't look right. Like the night Norman was fighting Boca Chica, something didn't look right. Something was a little off and he was almost out of there. And then we saw Barrios against Ramos, like you said, and something wasn't right that night. You know what I mean? I don't know. But they both have nights where they pulled up and they did their best and they looked good. So I mean, that's a 50-50 fight in my eyes.
Someone in the chat wanted to ask you, Greg, did you already talk about the style of Stanionis? In my experience, that earmuff style is easy to beat when you got 3 things: good feet, good jab, and power. Boots got all 3 of them.
I mean, having keeping your hands up like that, there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is a lot of guys who fight like that, they don't take steps back. Sometimes you got to take a step back. Sometimes you got to slip, find an angle. You know what I mean? And sometimes you just got to you got to add a little rhythm. He with Stanionis, it didn't work for him in that situation, but it has worked for him in the past. You know what I mean? So we can't really say it's a bad style, but it was a bad style for Boost because what Boost bring to the table, and because Stanionis didn't really add on to it. He didn't add any rhythm. He barely took a step back. You know what I mean? When he used his jab, it's just to go forward. You know what I mean? He didn't really use his jab as like a defense mechanism or to set anything up. He was just using it to just get closer. You know what I mean? But once he got closer, you know what I mean? He didn't really let anything go because Boots wasn't always giving him what he needed to, which is him to just stand there.
Mm-hmm.
He does better with fighters that stand there and try to fight with him or guys who try to run from him the entire time.
You know, there's a couple narratives that I already know that's going to be created while he's celebrated as he should. I think the majority feels that Jaron came Saturday and dominated and put on an excellent performance. I
Mhm.
do know that there's still a little criticism, just a couple, and I just wanted to get your thoughts. One of them comes from me personally. It's not anything negative because I feel like when you rise in competition, you're gonna get touched. Like Inouye's got dropped, Usyk's, it's been tough fights, Terrence, but there's always been this criticism of like I guess they feel like because they have this. Well, I'll speak for myself because he has this athleticism, this Philly shell, he can maneuver. In my mind, I'm thinking, all right, there's moments where he looks like Pernell, he has Floyd Mayweather moments, but then every once in a while he gets caught with like something that seems extremely flush. You know,
Mhm.
is that him just like position himself to set up a trap? Is that him kind of baiting, or is that him taking a chance? Or the guys just these guys aren't getting enough credit. That it's not really the lack of defense, but maybe they're just a lot better on offense. So I guess what I'm saying. Like I know you hear it throughout this dominating performance that it's like, well, he can still get caught here in between and stuff like that. That seems flesh.
I mean, I what I don't understand is right. If you in a shootout, you gonna get shot. Somebody gonna get shot. You know what I mean? I don't understand like how people think you're gonna be in a fight and not get hit. It's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? When Floyd fought Shane Mosley, almost got knocked out. Almost got knocked out. When Floyd fought Chop Chop Corley, almost got knocked out. You know what I mean? Zab hurt him with a shot. These things happen. You know what I'm saying? When you mentioned Pernell, Pernell's very slick. His style is defense based, you know what I'm saying? And he counter you a lot, but still got hit. You know what I mean? You're going to get hit. It happens. I really don't know how to answer that because you're going to get hit at some point. As long as you don't get hit too much and get knocked out, that's you know what I mean. That's what we're trying to stay away from. But you're going to get hit. Don't matter who you are.
Right. No, you raise good points to answer that because I know that it's hindsight now to think like these guys are so great, for what they're accomplished that now while fighters in the present, and I myself included, you have a expectation like, man, he getting hit. He can't be like the next Floyd. Oh man, he can't be like that. And I'm guilty of that. So you raised good points on that. I think the other thing that other people bring up, not myself, but he is arguably one of the bigger, if not one of the biggest welterweights, in the division. So, they often mention that because of the size, reach, and things like he's supposed to dominate and beat these guys that are considerably smaller welterweight. So, do you agree with them in that sense, or do you feel like they're just taking away, what Jaron is capable of doing because he is physically so much bigger and taller than his, opposition?
People pick and choose when they want to pick out a flaw or pick out a point to say that you're cheating or you just trying to have the advantage. I've never heard anybody say that Tito Trinidad was too big when he was on his tear at 147. I've never heard anybody say Paul Williams was too big when he was on his tear. I've never heard anybody say Tommy Hearns was too big when he was on his tear at 47. And guess what? All of those guys were bigger than Boots Ennis. So it's like, come on, man. Like y'all gotta stop trying to find stuff. You can't help how you're made. You know what I'm saying? Floyd Mayweather was smaller than a lot of guys. And he just outboxed them. So it has to do with the skill set. It has to do with determination. You know what I'm saying? It has to do with the work that you put in it, the hard work you put in it. It's not really the size all the time. Sometimes that matters, but it's not always the size. And the reason I'm saying that, Tyson Fury was once knocked down by a cruiserweight, Steve Cunningham, who wasn't a national heavyweight. You know what I'm saying? So it's not the size, bro. It's just what you bring to the table.
Because I know that Devin's been criticized for being considered what's big for a lightweight. So
Hmm.
when he fought Ryan, which we know that's a never-ending conversation because of the failed drug test and the Ryan missing weight and maybe Devin underestimated. There's so many theories, but the one thing that it says like, hey, he fought someone his size, right?
Hmm.
And now it seems like he's kind of met his match. So I think when Jaron goes up in weight, do you feel like fights will look more competitive, or do you feel like, potentially, he'll get better as a fighter and actually kind of destroy some of those narratives?
I think I think the fights will look more competitive simply because it's a more competitive weight class.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 54 just got more bodies. You know what I mean? More guys that's going for it. You know what I mean? But the skill set, I think he still reigns supreme when it comes to skill set. He's going to be still a lot better than guys. You know what I mean? But yeah, you're gonna have to put a little bit more beating on them because they're a little bit bigger. Also, the glove size changes. You know what I mean? 40 the 47, 54 mark is where the gloves change. Once you go to 54, you're wearing 10 ounces now. So yeah, you're gonna have to do a little bit more punching for sure.
Mm-hmm. I know that you represent not just boxing but Philly boxing. I know that a lot of stuff about Fulton and Duran. I think last year there was a lot of criticism across the board.
Hmm.
Myself alone, I picked Brandon to be the favorite against the Stephen Fulton fight, and I expected Boots to potentially go the distance. So I'm like 0-2. Even though I picked Duran to win the fight, like the narrative
Hmm.
was, you know, really maybe a couple years ago, Fulton should dominate Brandon Figueroa even in a rematch, and Jaron should totally spark out Stanionis. So with that shift that now boxing in Philly, right? Like, what do you think the adjustment was, just outside of just you will see the right opponents, right time? What do you think the culture shift was? Because I know that um, you guys heard it. You know what I mean? Philly's been a very hotbed for boxing for years, but it seemed like it was just like a full 180 now. What do you think was the full change of all their, or it just never changed? It's just people just had to see.
I mean, you talking about the now. See, when you talk about Philadelphia fighters, man, you talking about the city. These guys are just like this. They tough guys. You know what I mean? Because we come from tough upbringing. People don't know that because of what you see on YouTube or Instagram or Twitter. You don't really understand. You have to come to Philly and spend some time here to understand what these guys have been through in life. When you understand what they've been through in life and the things they've seen and been around, then you'll understand the fighting mentality. Philadelphia fighter never quits and never really want to, you know what I'm saying? He never want to give up and he always want to put on his best effort. So what you're seeing is just what's supposed to happen. You know what I mean? It's not really like, oh, I converted to Islam, or oh, I went and read the Bible and I realized it's none of that stuff. It's just the nature of the city, man. You got everybody here is a fighter. It's just how it is, man. It's just how it is. So all right, I didn't do my best the last one. All right, I'll catch you in the next one. You know what I mean?
You think some of that also Bozy probably felt too as a trainer, because I know when Fulton made his comeback and had a shootout and he got dropped, they criticized the moments that was on camera, right? Obviously we're not in the corner to hear the full instructions, but
Hmm.
people's criticized the instructions that Bozy allegedly was given that was captured in the Karen fight.
Hmm.
So Bozy took a lot of strays as well, and
Hmm.
now Fulton's coming off possibly the best win of his career. Brandon in the
Hmm.
second weight class, not considered weight drain, and then obviously Stanionis for the unification. So, what do you think? The shift and the change is Bozy is because I see someone in the chat flip saying it's time to start having Bozy trainer of the year combo question mark. I know it's early in the year, but those are two great wins, and I
Hmm.
know that there's probably a lot more. But what do you think the Bozy as a trainer has learned and progressed?
I mean, what every great trainer provides is like how can you say like some type of structure, right? Some type of structure, some type of path they put you on. Cool Boy, his style was more like I'm gonna do what you want to do type of style. Hey, you want to fight? Let's fight. Hey, you want to box? Let's box. With Bozy, we're gonna slow things up a little bit. We're gonna box and we're gonna let things open up. You know what I'm saying? And we're gonna take advantage of what's open and also what we see. You know what I'm saying? So it's always about structure. Every great trainer has a certain structure, and if a fighter follows it, a lot of times it'll be successful. You know what I mean? If you really believe. When there's no structure, that's when you see guys fall apart and continue to fall apart because there's nothing there holding them together. So I think that's what Bozy provides. You do get good structure when you go and deal with him. You know what I'm saying? When they work out as a team. You know what I mean? When they work on things, they work on things as a team. You get what I'm saying? It's a lot of good qualities that he has.
Yeah, because like I said, he took a lot of strays. People were
Yeah.
like, I'm sure you heard like, oh, you need to get a new trainer and things like that and stuff. And I know Fulton's case, anytime you kind of get a new trainer first time, it never like you got to have a couple more fights for things to kind of kick in. But
Right.
I know people also criticize the father son, so it definitely seems like Bozy made adjustments, just outside of just what people saw. So um,
It's like this. Not to cut you
no,
off,
go
but
ahead.
it's like this, Ron. Like imagine if I was your trainer, right?
Hmm.
But I just met you. You from wherever you from. You know what I mean? I don't know you like that. And me and you have great days in the gym. But when you go home, I don't know that you drinking beer. You know what I'm saying? And you coming back to the gym, things look a little off, and we talking about it. But you're not telling me that you drinking beer, or you're not telling me that you out partying with girls. These are the things that trainer and fighters go through, and people don't know. And what they love to do is blame the trainer. But you got to remember, these are grown men that go home, they have habits or they have obsessions with whatever it is that you don't know nothing about. You know what I mean? And that you're having to deal with. You people think that trainer and fighter is like father son all the time. It's not, and these are grown men. So you know what I mean. I can only do my part, which is try to guide you through to victory. I can't do nothing else. You know what I mean? But when you get a fighter who listens to his trainer and his trainer is really paying attention to what's going on and really understands the task, then that's when you get a great outcome.
No, you raise a great point. And obviously, a trainer can only do so much, but they also, they when something goes bad, it seems like they get the heat of it. But
Yeah,
obviously, sometimes when fighters win, which they should get the credit, they're the one fighting, but sometimes they get pushed to the side. So just wanted to give
yeah,
Bozy his shine because those are two great wins early in the year. Who else?
for
I mean,
sure.
allegedly Fulton's thinking about. Well, I can't say Fulton's thing because I haven't talked to Fulton on this, but there's been reports of him and Oshaki Foster going, which is another crazy fight when you think about it because he just jumps in a weight class last year to jump out of that to jump into another against
Hmm.
a really stylistically a tough guy who can bang and box. So I mean, if that fight does happen, I mean, do you favor Fulton in a comfortable way, or is it one of those kind of 50-50s where if Fulton's not, you know, aligned, it can go bad?
I've never seen Oshaki Foster up against somebody like Fulton. You know what I mean? Who can be unpredictable. I've seen Fulton in there with the likes of a Oshaki Foster. Of course I'm going with my guy. You know what I mean? That's just the bias. I'm from Philadelphia and I've watched these guys grow up. So Cool Boy, I've been watching him since he was about 12, 13 years old. So of course I'm going with him. But to be fair, that's just a great fight in my eyes. That's a great fight.
Yeah. Well, I gotta get if I guess some people in the chat I guess had some quick questions with Greg. I'm sure you don't mind answering some, right?
Yeah, we rolling. Let's roll.
Appreciate you jumping in. Obviously, Fight Hype's very Greg friendly, so you're always welcome. You know what I mean? You've
I
been
don't know, man. They wasn't fucking with me like 2 years ago.
well. It's different.
Yeah.
When I met you, so hopefully, um,
Yeah.
things changed, and you provide a lot of great commentary. You're what's considered a voice now.
Hmm.
It's kind of hard when a fight prediction happens. You and Mill always do a breakdown and kind of there's this what I would say there's this YouTube channel called Moda Media. They use you a lot. They kind of take
Mm.
clips and stuff and it puts you in there and whatnot. So it was the Lamont Roach and Gervonta Tank Davis fight where they credited you a lot for I guess giving like a lot of breakdowns. I think we were talking about like short punching and the
Hmm.
compactness. So I mean, you think you can go two for two, like because they sourced the interview you did with us, the sourced the interviews you did with Mill. You think you can
Hmm.
go 2 for 2 on a prediction on how the second fight goes? Because that's some Greg Damas if you can do it twice in a row.
I mean, listen, man. If you can't tell, man, that fight with them two, with Lamont and Tank, that's just gonna be what it is because they are tailor made for each other. That next fight is gonna be so good. They might have to do it 3 times, bro. I'm telling you. The styles just contrast really good. You know what I mean? They go together. That's gonna be a challenge for both of them each time out. So we might be seeing a third fight with them. That's all I'm gonna say. That's gonna be good.
What, you think there would be any different adjustments, or you think the fight's gonna look the same? Just like two guys that are
I
gonna be
mean,
competitive and
the adjustments that need to be made on Tank side is Tank need to work behind his jab more, and Tank need to focus more on combination punching. You know what I'm saying? Not trying to get the knockout all the time. For Lamont's going to have to be first. Lamont has to be first and has to get to that body. You know what I'm saying? Those are the adjustments in my eyes. You
mm-hmm.
know what I mean? But who knows?
think potentially Tank could come into this fight. Um, I want to say more focus, right? Because I feel like that discredits Lamont. But I know that, there was a lot of potential distractions, right? The Jake Paul maybe on the line, for whatever reason, working with Barry and the camp. But just in a sense where now he knows that, all right, I've kind of dodged a bullet with this draw. Need to really,
Hmm.
be on top of it. So, is it a potential that Tank kind of completely changes the fight in its an entire course and just dominates what people thought was he was supposed to in the first place.
I mean, anything can happen, but I'm gonna be honest. I think he gave Lamont a certain type of confidence that's gonna be hard to take back. You know what I mean? He was because we got to remember Lamont wasn't even competitive at 135. He was champion at 130. Now we talk about him being competitive at 135. I'm pretty sure he had a few questions and they definitely got answered that night about himself. You know what I mean? So he found out not only can I compete at 35, I'm at the top of the food chain because Tank is supposed to be the best at 35 or one of the best. You know what I mean? So it's going to have to be some great adjustments getting made on Tank's side. I don't know what he was going through that night. That's not my business, but yeah, I know that fight was very close. I thought a draw was deserving. And I don't know. I don't know. The next one gonna be good
Yeah, I think they're talking about maybe it being in Vegas, and that's major. A Vegas
for
fight.
sure.
Um, you know, there's word that Keyshawn Davis is gonna fight De Los Santos.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Good idea, bad idea. You know, how does that go as a homecoming fight as a champion now?
I think it's a good idea because it's a guy that we have questions about, meaning De Los Santos. We seen De Los Santos in there with Shakur, and it wasn't fair to either fighter how the fight turned out because they really didn't fight. You know what I mean? They really didn't fight. It was just a lot of moving around. You know what I mean? A lot of people gave Shakur backlash, but Shakur did what he could with one hand. De Los Santos didn't force the issue neither. So I think it was both of their doings. You know what I'm saying? Now, for Keyshawn to take that fight with De Los Santos, knowing that De Los Santos is dangerous, he's awkward, he could punch, he got good speed. You know what I'm saying? That speaks volume to who he is as a fighter. He could have probably fought anybody. You know what I'm saying? To fight De Los Santos, I think he trying to make a little bit of a statement. You know what I mean? And it's a good opponent. We can't disrespect De Los Santos. Really good fighter. So I'm really intrigued to see what happens in that fight.
There's an interesting storyline that's gonna come out if Keyshawn like destroys De Los Santos, right? Like he
Mm,
destroys him, makes it look easy, and
yeah,
normally what happens is where if a fighter fought someone and someone did better than them, and especially when they're both champions in a weight class, it's
yeah,
already something that fans are trying to pit between Keyshawn and Shakur. And they've kind of already been like, look, we're brothers, we're not gonna fight each other,
yeah,
so, but in a way that because they're not fighting each other, and Keyshawn's like the little bro on the scene, if he
yeah,
outperforms De Los Santos, does that do something to Shakur? Because there's no really way to settle that because unless Shakur gets the Tank fight, but you know what I mean. Like, does that now put Shakur in a position where I'm rooting for my guy to do the best he can, but damn, he knocked him out. We have different styles. I'm trying to explain people style makes fights, yada yada. But now, what does that dynamics do? Like, does that kind of like take away a little bit of shine from Shakur because he was injured? He claimed he wasn't feeling well. There's circumstances, and
yeah.
now he's in a position where little bro, if you blast him out now, so
Yeah.
I guess it's tricky, and I just wanted like I guess your thoughts on it.
I mean, here's the thing I've been thinking about with Shakur. Shakur might be one of those guys, super talented, super skilled, but the injuries gonna hold him back, like a Derrick Rose of basketball. You know what I mean? Derrick Rose is a great point guard, but we didn't get to see everything he can do simply because of the injuries. That might be Shakur's story. We don't know. The best thing to do though is just continue to be yourself and get the fights that you can get. Being obsessed with Tank and trying to get that fight, I wouldn't even really entertain it anymore. You know what I mean? You are who you are. You have your own career. You know what I mean? Make things happen. The more Shakur continues to fight and to perform, the more people won't even think about that fight with De Los Santos anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Got to do what you got to do. I get what you saying though. People would definitely highlight that, but if you look at the two styles, if you look at the body frames and everything, everything's just different when you talk about Keyshawn. The intensity level is different, the body work is different, you know what I mean? And they are of the same level because they both were silver medalists. So, you know what I mean? We talking about two great fighters, but it's just two different storylines, you know what I mean?
Does it get frustrating now? Like, because I know that you and Shakur have kind of built a relationship. I've seen, and he's done an interview on your channel, Greg
Hmm.
Haggett, or should I say GHB TV or Greg Haggett?
GHB TV. Yep.
Okay, so if you guys haven't subscribed, check it out. But yeah, he came on your platform. You did an interview with him, and outside of like the health stuff that you've highlighted, right? Kind of stuff that
Hmm.
Paulie's went through and Floyd and other great fighters had to make adjustments, but he's also dealing with political nightmares, right? He goes over, signs somewhere, doesn't get the fights that he wanted, 100% didn't work his way if it's their fault or not. Then he goes over Matchroom, the Kid Austin fight kind of weirdly falls out, and then
Yeah.
giving them benefit of doubt. If he was sick, then hope everything's okay. But if not, then I don't know. It's weird, um, but I guess I can't really knock him because of Daniel Dubois got sick too, so it must have been something. But now he's dealing with other political things, right? Now it seemed like Turkey was allegedly having a number. Shakur's kind of doubled down, saying like, "Hey, it's not the number. Now I want to force the route of a purse bid," which we've seen fighters not do the mandatory purse bid and go somewhere else. So like he's in a political nightmare. So like how discouraging, or like outside of just doing the best you can, if you can't get these guys like Zapate and stuff, and they're clowning you for fighting guys like last minute replacement, the electrician, Patty, like what do you do to stay positive when your hands are hurting, you can't get the fights, and when you are getting a stoppage against a guy like Patty, it took too long, right? It took a little bit longer than it should be. And I might be guilty too. I might have felt, maybe this should feel a bit longer, but why am I feeling this way? Like, I might be a hypocrite myself about it, but it just seems like everything that should be going good for him, like you got the stoppage, it just didn't seem like enough. Like, you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
just, he's just kind of getting a lot of the political side of it. Like, how do you stay focused through that?
I mean, you embrace what it is. This is just my life. You know what I mean? This is just what I have to go through. So here's the thing, right? I don't even like cars. I'm not a fan of cars. Like, so fixing cars is not even my thing. Yeah, if I need to change the tire, I do know how to do that. But I'm not a car guy. Does that make me less of a man because I'm not a car guy? Or does that make me less of a man because I'm not a computer tech type of guy? You know what I mean? I'm not one of those guys. Like, everybody's different, and everything you go through is going to be different. You know what I mean? But it's going to be similarities in what we go through. So I can't the same way I can't say I'm less of a man because I'm not a car guy. I can't say that another guy's less of a man because he don't know how to hold his hands. You know what I'm saying? So Shakur going through what he going through, he just had to understand this is life, and you got to take what come with it. As long as he continue to win, he'll be okay. He'll be
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Do you think that the situation with him and Turkey will get worked out? Just being optimistic.
I think it'll definitely get worked out. It's just that somebody put something in Turkey's head, I think, about Shakur, or either maybe he don't really like Shakur, or not like him. I ain't gonna say that because I don't know what it is, but maybe he's just not his type of guy. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. But here's the thing: Turkey is not the end all be all. You know what I'm saying? At the same time, it's got to be somebody they want you to fight. You know what I'm saying? It's got to
Mm-hmm.
be something they want to see. Just stay ready. Just stay ready. All Shakur got to do is stay ready and get the win.
Yeah, because at some point, I guess he'll be a mandatory, right? But then they'll vacate the title again, and then
Yeah.
it's Shakur's situation is just it's like almost like a Winky Wright, like someone
There
has
you
to
go.
give him an opportunity. He can't get an opportunity; he has to just get an opportunity. So someone has to look at Shakur and be like, "I'll give it to you." And
But what it is, honestly, with Shakur, his style is so clean. Guys don't want to go in there and deal with that. You know what I mean? Shakur is the ultimate chess match. Here's why. He's not going to make too many mistakes, and he's not going to give you what you want. So mentally, the average man crashes out after 4 rounds. What I mean by that is they get stuck in their ways by the first 4 rounds. So we got another 8 rounds of fighting, and wherever he's at in that first four, that's where he gonna be. You know what I'm saying? Shakur is making adjustments every round. Shakur is paying attention to where he's at every round. You know what I'm saying? He's keeping his measurements through the entire fight. That's hard to be up against. And that's really the issue with Shakur. That's why they try to downplay him, because he's so great at what he does. People don't want to be up against it. So they try to make all these excuses. It shouldn't be no excuses. All of these guys should be fighting each other.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it's unfortunate. You know, I think at a certain point where the lightweight division's at limbo, and he's probably going to have to jump up another weight class. And, you know, who's going to fight him, you know, at 140. Yeah, so,
for sure.
Well, look, you know, I don't want to take a lot of your time, Greg. And I know that you working with a lot of people yourself. So if there's any people that you're working with I can highlight, or any names, or just people that you want to put on and just shine a little bit, more than welcome to just talk about them.
No, man, you know me. I'm working with Joseph Ortiz, 13-1 record with 7 knockouts at featherweight, and Jabril Noble at 130, 135, 6-5 knockouts. Just look out for him.
Yeah.
Jabril Noble, Joseph Ortiz.
Yeah, yep. I know. I think Jabril has been making some noise, you know, throughout, and you know
we've been trying, but it's tough getting fights.
Yeah,
it's tough. Yeah.
Who's he signed with? Just or just
no promoter.
Ugh, just
I know. Well,
I'm sure you'll get them notoriety, man. You've been, like I said, you've been killing the commentary, you know, and a lot of people has been definitely bigging you up big time. So I'm happy to see all the success, and it's been probably a long time coming, because you've been doing commentary and breakdowns for years. You know what I mean? Like, you know, even before I even was with FightHype, you had breakdowns on FightHype. So I'm just happy to see, you know, all your praise now, right? So. But
appreciate you.
Where can they follow you on social media and things like that? If
Greg Hackett 86 on Instagram, Greg Hackett 215 on X, Greg Hackett on Facebook, and GHB TV on YouTube.
Awesome. Look, I appreciate you coming on, man. You bring value. You know what I mean? I think there was even an uptick in some viewers. They probably were like, "What? Greg's here?" So they stayed a little bit longer. So I appreciate you. You know, you definitely helped a little bit right there. So awesome. And
my man.
All right, man. Take care. Enjoy your Sunday, man.
You too, guys.
All right, awesome, cool. So I really appreciate you know, Greg jumping on, giving you guys what better show, right? The show that highlights Jaron Ennis just destroying and dismantling Eimantas Stanionis. So I really appreciate him coming out and giving a lot of knowledge. You know what I mean? You know, Greg's someone who just not just is around boxing. He knows what it feels like to fight. Feels like to train. He's been in the trenches for a very long time. So definitely, once again, if everyone in chat could just take some time. Let me see if I can pull up his YouTube channel really quick. If you haven't already, you took time to show love, so I got to return the favor. Let's see if I can get it. GHB TV. I'm going to pull it up so that you guys can actually see right here. Awesome. Give me 1 second. Let me pull it up. No mention of Jesus Ramos versus Boots. You know, Tip, I could have asked Greg. The only reason why I think and this is maybe just is my perspective, maybe I should have just asked him for you, is I just don't see that unless Jesus ends up getting a belt himself. I guess I don't see that fight happening politically and just in general. So I just Ron, serve your masters. What are you doing? What does that even mean, base Chad? What does that even mean? That sounds crazy. Serve your masters. All right, cool. All right, perfect. All right, so let me show Greg's YouTube channel real quick. Right here, if you guys haven't had a chance, this is his YouTube channel, so definitely help him grow. Definitely help him big time. Help him get to 20K. He does a lot of lives over here. So, yep, you can see. So, lots of love for showing out, giving a lot of knowledge. Head over to GHB TV. Let me see. What's it? Ron G unit. What up, police night? All right, y'all. You guys know Moses? Yeah, I know Moses. I know Moses now. I can't really say I knew Moses, so. All right, y'all. I'm gonna spend some time with my child. I'm sure if you guys were here, he came and crashed the stream a little bit, so I know he misses me because I was out. Ron, man, I don't time out nobody, Tay. The only people I time out are those stream links that come in when it's fight night and they're just spamming the crap out of it. But even if you're trolling me, man, I don't even time you out, man. Like I think someone was in here like giving me shit, but man, chat's the chat, man. That's what it's there for. If you want to talk shit to me, but I'm gonna spend some time with my son. I really appreciate you guys coming in on a Sunday. I know there's a lot of things you guys could be doing, like laying in bed, chilling, playing games, doing something else. But I'll definitely be doing more lives. Just been kind of trying to get a structure together. I took a little break because I was doing a lot of Zoom interviews and balancing now just being a father. So at this point, I think I'm getting it a little bit together. So I'll be engaging a lot more. And we'll be having some guests and having some stuff. So once again, I really appreciate Greg stopping by and just kind of bringing an uptick in views. I see it, and I'm not going to lie. He did help out, so I got to give props. So, and appreciate you guys staying, man. Would you put Ennis in your pound for pound list? I feel like the pound for pound list is so deep with guys that have had a lot more opportunities than Jaron. So, like, if I did put Jaron, it'd be like around the 10-ish mark, only because there's so many people that have accomplished more than he has. It's not the fact that he won't be on the pound for pound list. If he keeps fighting and keep performing and keep getting titles and fighting top guys and beating them that way, then you have to. But I just feel like it's more of a time thing. Pound for pound list typically is a list that have like 30-year-olds because they're in the game for so long. They're more in their third trimester of their career. Every once in a while you get a guy that's like in their second trimester, because they were positioned in a way where they can get fights politically and guys want to fight them. But most time pound for pound list is with guys at the end of their career or closer to it, because now you're summarizing everything they have done. And if you got this kid who just hit the scene and just became unified for the first time, and you're comparing it to a guy who's been unified in 3-4 different weight classes, you're obviously going to say that guy is going to be higher up, right? So that's really what it is. It's out with the old, in with the new. Jaron is new. He will be entering soon. If he hasn't, is towards the bottom. But the longer he does this, at the rate he does, he'll be at the top. So, but other than that, if you guys like the show, please hit like, please. I got some Paula Malignaggi stuff dropping soon. I just interviewed Lamont Roach. It was an update recently about the rematch with Tank. So some good stuff dropping. Please stay locked on FightHype. Appreciate all you guys. What up, man? Peace. Emiliano Vargas. Yeah, I want to see him and Abdullah. Jaquan about to play Undisputed. That's what's up, man. Police night. Ron Gangstovich. Tip. Base. Tay. Rich. Mexican Boxing. What's up, my guy? Dipset. Jay. Rich Porter. Rodney. Armin. Yeah, everyone, tired ass Cowboy fan. What a name, bro. I'm a Giants fan, so I might as well be tired ass Giants fan, Yeah, D for the win. Well, watch the sport for sport, not because of you're talking about someone in the chat, yeah. So awesome. Mr. Quake. Yep, showing love. Flip. Ron, read my last. That's my mega fight, equation, Blackford. Oh, I didn't even see it. Did I read it, Flip? My bad. I didn't see it. So, all right, let me stop recording. I'm sorry, I didn't even see what, I unfortunately don't really block chat. It's just, if you guys fight your battles, man. That's what it's there for. So, all right, man, you guys have a good one. Once again, man, I really appreciate you guys, man. Enjoy your Sunday, man. Do something productive, man. And have a good one. Peace.